Silent Hill 2 is an experience. Horror games are many, and the genre has quite a few amazing entries over the years, from games such as Signalis to new titles like Hollow Body, and of course, Daddy's favorite, Deadly Premonitions.
All pigs must die in the city of wolves.
The one game that has stood the test of time as being the best in the survival horror genre is Silent Hill 2. So, the question then is, did they manage to pull it off? Well, that's what we're here to find out today. I want to bring you on a fantastic journey through the best horror game ever made, to uncover the story, gameplay, secrets, and Easter eggs, on top of analyzing and comparing it to the original from 2001. Alright, let's go. Just like in the original Silent Hill 2, the intro has us playing as James Sunderland, a man whose journey stands apart from the stories in Silent Hill 1, 3, and 4. James is simply staring into a mirror, and all we see is the reflection of his face. A reflection of what he wants us to see rather than the true self. It's almost like a mask he wears throughout the game, a theme that will become very clear as we progress. I have to commend Bloober Team here for pulling off this scene so well. James's facial design fits perfectly, though it's missing some of the eerie vibes from the original. From the start, we learn that James is here searching for his wife. However, as he mentions, it's strange because she passed away 3 years ago. This raises the question, who sent James this letter?
So then why am I looking for her? Our special place. What could she mean? This whole town was our special place. Could Mary really be here? Is she really alive?
With full control now handed to us, we can move around freely. The game uses a third-person perspective, very similar to the style seen in Resident Evil 4's Remake. Even the graphical style of both games share some similarities. Speaking of graphics and controls, holy moly does this game look stunning. On max settings with ray tracing enabled on PC, the graphical fidelity is beyond incredible. I was even able to capture some cinematic shots using the Unreal Engine mod for the game. We can re-enter the bathroom if we want to, or we can head to the car and pick up the Silent Hill map. Once we have that, we can check our inventory and look at Mary's letter and picture of her. In the original game, checking these items actually influences what ending you will get, but I'll save that discussion for the end of the video. Naturally, I tried to leave Silent Hill because, let's be real, who in their right mind would want to stay here? I mean, not me, but it doesn't really work. The game instead rewards us with a cheeky little achievement for at least attempting to escape. Even from the start, when comparing the two games, it's amazing how much they retain the eerie atmosphere of this place. The signs and even the creepy white van are still here. We head down the hills towards the cemetery. Along the way, we hear eerie noises echoing through the forest, and the fog thickens. I already get jump scared like a little bitch right here. I will say, this does give off a different feeling though. This forest gives me more like Blair Witch vibes, which I guess would make sense because it's also the same developers that made the Blair Witch game. Bro, what is that? Eventually, we reach the game's first save point, located on top of a rundown water well. Just like the original, James stares blankly into the void as the screen turns red.
Sheesh. Okay. Oh boy. Oh god. All right. So let's talk about something real quick. Now, I have a little bit of a complaint, and it's a bit of a stupid one, but let's just explain it like this. I love the save screen in Silent Hill 2 specifically because the Silent Hill 2 save screen inspired games like Signalis. Now, why do I like it? Because in the original game, it is so freaking loud. Just the noise from how you save in that game literally terrified me. It actually made me scared to save my game, which you should never be scared to save your game, but that's what it literally did. So when playing the remake, it felt almost like they had nerfed the sound. Maybe I'm crazy for thinking that, but it really felt like they nerfed it, which was a little bit of a disappointment.
Continuing our journey, we finally reach the graveyard, where we meet someone. This is Angela, and just like the originals, she's searching for her mother among the graves, all while acting very disjointed and confused.
I'm kind of lost.
Lost? But I think you should stay away. This town, there's something wrong with it. I thought father and brother were here.
Before we leave, there are a few hidden details about Angela that are really fascinating and easy to miss. If we use the camera mod and zoom in on her fingers, you'll notice they've been chewed up. As someone who lives with a girlfriend who gets anxious about stuff, I can tell you, Angela clearly has a lot of stress on her mind. And I guess this is as good of a time as any to bring up the voice acting. The entire game has gotten an overhaul in this area, with all the original actors being replaced by a new cast. Honestly, they all did a fantastic job, but I think something is missing. The original had this eerie, almost disjointed vibe that made everything and everyone feel slightly off. And the remake, instead, that unsettling feeling has been replaced by a performance that leads more towards somberness, sadness, and anxiety, which works really well, but it's a different atmosphere entirely though. As our journey continues, we pass by a giant cornfield, eerily similar to the one near where I live. Either way, along the way there's also some logs, which if you play through the game again on a New Game Plus specific save file, you will actually have access to the chainsaw, just like in the original title.
Okay. So one really cool thing about this game is that there are a few Easter eggs and details that you may not notice on the first playthrough. For example, when we come to the farm, which is right next to the beginning of the game, there is a specific ranch sign, the Silent Hill Ranch. Now, if you do not know this, back in the HD collection for the PlayStation 3, there was a specific font used, Comic Sans, which, if you know anything about Comic Sans, you know it's not really the best of fonts. But people were a little bit disappointed when they played the remake and, well, look at it. It's not Comic Sans. But guess what? It is still here. If you use a special camera mod, you can go all the way inside of the barn, at the back of it, and there it is. Bloober Team outdid themselves here. I know it's just a meme, but even these tiny details make such a difference for this game.
We come across a road work ahead. Yeah, I sure hope it does. Sign, which serves as a direct callback to the first game, where James encounters an enemy for the first time. The design of this scene is almost identical, making it a nostalgic moment for longtime fans, and also there will be more of these memory sequences throughout the journey. The path by the river is where I really took a moment to appreciate the audio in this game. Silent Hill has always been praised for its sound design, both the music and the incredible variety of atmospheric noises. Silent Hill 2 alone had over 100 different sounds just for footsteps, and wow, did they go all out with the audio here. You can hear distinct noises coming from nearly every object around you, just heightening the immersion a lot more. After picking up our first map of Silent Hill, we now have a clearer sense of where to go. The map will update every time James notices something significant. He'll even pull the map up from his pocket, and you can see him jotting down notes and making points of interest. Something that wasn't possible in the original, but really adds to the immersion and helps you feel more in tune with James's experience. We then enter a nearby flower shop, and we find some notes where the woman wrote down this.
Miss Cassandra, a customer came in today. Ordered a mixed bouquet, red and white. I tried to explain it's bad luck, but he couldn't decide on just one. He seemed a bit off, looked at me like I wasn't even there. Then he just left, said he'd be back to pick him up later. I just wanted to let you know, since I might be gone by then.
The customer she's talking about could have been James, perhaps getting flowers for Mary at the hospital before she passed away. Or it could be someone else entirely. We're not just sure yet. As we exit the flower shop, we notice a trail of what appears to be dried blood. Following it down to one of the foggy covered streets, we come across an even larger pool of blood. Naturally, my dumbass gets distracted by a flying bag.
Dude, this thing has a life of its own. Look at this thing. You spin me round now, baby, round now.
Hidden in the fog, we sense something. Or someone. But I can't quite make out who it is. We try to follow it, jumping some fences and going behind people's backyards, which is totally cool, with more blood and disturbing sounds echoing in the distance.
Hello?
We enter a nearby garage, but we get jump scared by the door that slams behind us. We then pick up some healing items and discover a radio. Yep, the long-standing tradition of static radios in Silent Hill continues. When you hear the static, it usually means something terrifying is close by. And sure enough, something does show up. This is the lying figure, the first enemy we encounter, and these creepy creatures have a bulky torsos and seem to be wearing something resembling high heels, giving them a strangely feminine appearance. When asked about the design, Masahiro Ito, the game's designer, revealed that he drew inspiration from BDSM fashion for the lying figures. Their name also hints at something deeper, which we'll explore a little bit later. Sweet combat, but first...
Oh man. I don't know, dude. Maybe I should subscribe to that channel. Subscribe to Blue Letter, I might find you.
Here we go, our first taste of the game's combat, and there's definitely a lot to say about it. Silent Hill 2 in particular was never really known for having the best of combat. It was actually pretty horrible, and if you argue with me, you know you're wrong, because it never had good combat to begin with.
However, that specifically is what gave the original Silent Hill 2 its charm. It was never meant to be a game all about the combat. It was supposed to be a psychologically driven horror game. So, how is the combat in the remake then? Fucking awesome. You see, it's kind of similar to the Homecoming system, which if you haven't seen that game, I highly recommend my video right here, but Homecoming introduced this action combat system which didn't really fit, and guess what? They managed to improve upon that in the remake. But in Homecoming, they tried to do an action combat system, but holy shit did it not work out. They sort of tried to replicate Resident Evil 4 with its action combat system, but without the refined movement and just overall gameplay. The biggest issue by far had to be the lock-on target system. That shit ruined that game, because every time you locked onto someone, you would essentially be stuck stun-locking them, or they would be stun-locking you.
Leaving the rundown building, our radio suddenly goes off, and through the static, we hear what sounds like Mary's voice before it abruptly cuts off. I liked how in the original game, James had this nonchalant and almost aloof reaction to hearing the eerie voice of his wife through this radio.
This thing broken? What the? I better take it anyway.
It was oddly unsettling, yet fitting for his character at the time. We stumble across a nearby corpse, which is holding a pack of matches from Neely's bar. If you look closely at the body, you might notice that it's dressed almost exactly like James. We also find a note nearby. If you're reading this, leave. This place is not what it seems. Sometimes you just have to look behind. This note is weird. When we flip it over, it repeats the words "run away" over and over. Maybe the man dressed like James left it as a warning before he died, but the phrase "look behind" feels like it could have a deeper meaning than we realize. And beyond that, the fact that he looks like James is also a little strange. Eventually, we run into our first roadblock, a giant wall that looks like construction scaffolding, held together by dirty white bedsheets. This could be symbolic of the hospital bedsheets from when James visited Mary, or maybe I'm just reading too much into it. Either way, it definitely adds to the eerie atmosphere. Entering a nearby bar, we can check the counter and find a coin engraved with the name Neely's Bar, giving us the next clue. A fun little Easter egg in the bar is that one of the beer taps is labeled Jacob's Lager, a direct reference to the 1990s movie Jacob's Ladder, which of course was a huge influence on the creation of Silent Hill 2. They both share a lot of similarities, and the team basically just put this in as a cool little reference. Leaving the bar, we explore more of the foggy streets. We come across a wash salon, as well as a bookstore containing a research article about the paranormal elements of Silent Hill. The streets are dangerous, so heading towards Neely's Bar is our safest bet. When we arrive, we find the lovely little message, "There was a hole here. It's gone now." Classic Silent Hill. There's another note on the bar counter, specifically talking about a man who got rowdy and drunk, muttering about fixing everything, before stumbling off towards apartment 9 on Saul Street. Before we leave, there is a jukebox in the bar with a broken vinyl record. Half of it is missing, so for now, we head back to the foggy streets, aiming for the Saul Street Apartments, which we couldn't explore in the original game. The entrance to the apartment has a note telling us to pick up a key for apartment 5. Along the way, we encounter our first bug enemies. Now, in the original, the bugs were pretty useless, but in the remake, they're a lot more fun to deal with. It actually feels satisfying to crush these critters. Upstairs, we find another note. This one's from a tenant complaining about something seeping down from the apartment above. Sure enough, when we sneak into the neighbor's apartment, it's absolutely disgusting. The room is left to our imagination when we try to open it, but you can already guess what's going on behind that door. Then, in a nod to the original game, there's a hole in the bathroom wall where James has to shove his hand inside to retrieve an item. It's just as unsettling as before, though I prefer James's reaction in the original, where he seemed more freaked out by whatever it was touching him. Inside, it's one of the buttons for the jukebox, so we pick it up and head outside. One of my favorite things in the remake is how you can curb stomp every window in the game. It is oddly satisfying. You even get a goofy achievement for it. Plus, it's sometimes useful for grabbing items from cars or even reading notes in storefronts, although I'm sure the citizens of Silent Hill aren't too happy about their property getting trashed in the morning. Entering the groovy music store, we have to fight off two lying figures. This is where the combat system really shines. We're in a tight and close space with multiple enemies, so it's crucial to be tactical, and if they corner us, it's game over. Plus, the fact that they can spit stomach acid from a distance adds another layer of challenge. We find a note mentioning the same guy from Neely's bar, who came here with the other half of the vinyl record. Using some glue, we piece them both together, but before heading back, we make one more pit stop at a blocked-off path. The door that wakes in darkness, opening into nightmares. Right next to this sign, there's also two bloody handprints on a door. If we interpret the message, it suggests we should be returning here at night to enter what will likely be a hellish new area. How much worse can things get in this foggy town? I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna find that out. Lastly, let's talk about the fog itself. They really nailed the look and feel of the fog in this game. It's just as iconic as in the originals, keeping you in a constant state of uncertainty, never sure what's really lurking beyond your view.
Returning to Neely's bar, we finally are able to insert the jukebox button and vinyl record we've been carrying around. As the music begins to play, we see images flash in the background, seemingly from Silent Hill's harbor. These are glimpses of James's memories with Mary, highlighting their time together in this special place. What makes this scene even more powerful is the music playing in the background. Anam Cara, also known as Magdalene in the original game, a track composed by legendary Akira Yamaoka. The song carries a deep sense of melancholy, perfectly encapsulating the somber mood of Silent Hill. Honestly, it's Akira, so you know it's going to be a banger no matter what. The man does not miss.
Just the two of us staring at the water.
After this emotional moment, we're able to explore more of Neely's bar by passing the back door, which leads us to a nearby apartment. Inside, we find a letter from a tenant that mentions the same man we've been hearing about, the one who's going crazy. According to the letter, the man's keys are located near a bluish-green car. Time for a scavenger hunt, I guess. We search until we find the car, and wait a second, does it look familiar to you guys?
Is this the car? It kind of looks like ours, doesn't it?
We pick up the keys from inside of a bloody military jacket that once again looks eerily similar to James's own clothing, and just when we think we're in the clear, we get ambushed by a group of lying figures. Now, compared to the original Silent Hill 2, this remake really loves to throw more enemies at you. I played on normal enemy difficulty and easy puzzles, because, hey, I'm a certified coward, but even so, the remake feels much more combat heavy than the originals, and honestly, that's kind of a downside and a positive depending on how you see it. One of the great things about the original was the option to just run away, which added to the tension and gave you the feeling that combat wasn't always the answer. During the fight with the lying figures, something unexpected happens. A massive storm suddenly brews up out of nowhere. This wasn't in the originals, but it works incredibly well here. The storm completely disorients you, making it harder to keep track of where you're going. I ended up lost and I kind of wandered in circles for a while, which adds a new level of immersion and stress to the gameplay. Eventually, after being lost for a while, I stumbled across some notes next to a broken down truck. The guy who left the note has a body that once again resembles James. He also left another note that mentions a 4-digit code. Apparently, he tried every code from 1 to 4013, but was left with only a few possibilities. 4339 to 4344. We'll have to jot these down for later.
Motherfucker!
No! No! Please don't tell me I have to replay all of that. Please. No!
As I'm wandering through the fog and panic, I somehow find myself inside of Happy Burger, a fast food joint that feels like a pseudo McDonald's, or I guess pseudo Burger King if you want. It's a place that has been included in the original game too, and it actually shows up in Silent Hill 3 as well. That's where Heather Mason is sitting whenever she wakes up from her nightmare. The attention to detail here is amazing. The menus, the tossed items, and even the little world building details are all scattered around the place. And I like this. This is one of those things I do enjoy about the remake far more. The original Happy Burger in Silent Hill 2 didn't really have much to explore, so this is a nice upgrade in that regard. And let's be real, a burger for 99 cents sounds like a dream right now. Happy Burger, while a cool detour, isn't our main destination. We need to go to the Woodside Apartments to use our newly found key. However, before heading there, we make a quick stop at the local market. If you guys remember those codes we jotted down from earlier, well, now it's time to try them out. So we go through all of them until eventually the door opens. Inside, we can get ourselves a lot of great stuff. There's healing items and our first pack of handgun ammunition, which usually implies that we should be getting a gun soon. Finally, we're gonna enter the Woodside Apartments. We find yet another note, and it mentions that someone is heading to the Texan station and tells us to meet them there. Who could it be? Guess we'll find out soon enough. And here we are, the Woodside Apartments. At first glance, the place feels a bit warmer compared to the other areas, but that comfort is short-lived. Right away, we find our first puzzle. The coin cabinets. Scattered throughout the apartments are coins that we're gonna need to collect in order to solve the riddle. With most paths either blocked or locked away, the only option is up. A note we find mentions a lady complaining about her neighbor shooting guns in their apartment. Strangely, nothing was found inside, apparently, giving us a clue about where we need to head next.
Like, that's gotta be where we find our weapon. Like, that's gotta be where we find our weapon. Like, it has to be. Like, it's gotta be where we find our weapons.
Hello? Is anyone there?
The fuck was that?
Well, our first apartment trip ends up introducing us to a brand new enemy type.
Oh no, I hate mannequins. No. Oh no, dude. Well, we got a flashlight now, though. I knew it! I fucking knew it! I fucking knew it!
These are the mannequins, and it's kind of funny how we saw mannequins right before we entered this room. Now, I'm gonna be real with you. The mannequins in this game are fucking terrifying. They will have a tendency of hiding in corners, behind walls, behind furniture, or even pretend to be real mannequins to trick you. Frankly speaking, they are far scarier in the remake as opposed to the original game. The whole design of the mannequin seems to be two sets of torsos connected to each other. They are also clad in bandages and have orthotics attached to them as well, which is a form of brace used to immobilize and help bones or tissue heal, perhaps representing the same form of thing that James saw whenever he visited Mary at the hospital. And if you look closely, the mannequin where we find the flashlight is wearing the same clothes as Mary. Could this be Mary's way of guiding James, literally shining a light on his journey? Well, this whole scene plays out the same as in the original, but the darker tone and enhanced fidelity in the remake just hits harder. I'll admit though that it did freak me out a little bit more this time than the first time around. After surviving this encounter, we find the key to the courtyard chute. This key unlocks the courtyard, but it's mostly empty. However, by climbing into a nearby trash container, we enter another apartment. Inside, we find a newspaper article detailing a double murder committed by none other than Walter Sullivan. Longtime Silent Hill fans will recognize the name as the infamous serial killer from Silent Hill 4. Walter Sullivan, the culprit in a recent homicide case, was found dead, having taken his own life of the morning of the 22nd in his jail cell. As we explore more of the apartments, they're mostly empty, save for the occasional mannequin that rushes out of nowhere.
Holy shit! I did not expect that.
And then this little shit shows up.
Let's see. Get the key. Come on, get the key. Get the key. Reach the key. Come on, James. You got this.
Hey! Wait!
You fucking little bitch.
All right, well, she kicked away the key. So onwards we go, and we discover a door with a hand-shaped handle. After loosening one of them, a golden apple falls out, symbolizing a reward or a gift, perhaps. Also, behind the door, there's a white wedding dress, maybe hinting at James and Mary's wedding, and the apple symbolizing their union. We pick up the key that was kicked away by the little girl. It's for the second floor hallway. In a nearby room, we also find sheet music for Schumann's Einsame Blumen, which is Lonely Flowers, and on the wall is a child's drawing of flowers and a rabbit, likely by the little girl. There's also a last note in the room before we circle back to the main entrance, where we find a newly open hallway, crawling with enemies. Entering room 102 with the key we found earlier, everything feels oddly familiar, like we've been here before.
It kind of looks like the fridge from Silent Hill 4. Don't ask me why. I just thought, I don't know why I thought of that in particular. Ooh, hello.
Turns out I'm not crazy. This room is a direct reference to Henry Townsend's room from Silent Hill 4. We even find the light blue shirt he wore in that game inside of the bathroom of all places. We also stumble upon our first Polaroid picture. Now, these pictures actually do carry a lot of significance, but we'll talk about them a little bit later because we will find more of them. Moving to the second floor, we find a dead lying figure on the ground. Not a good sign. As we explore further, a shadow looms down the hallway, a figure under a dim red light. It's him, one of the arguably most iconic villains in horror gaming, Pyramid Head. The giant pyramid-shaped helmet, the slow, unnerving movement. This guy is central to the story. But for now, we leave him be and head to the next room. The room contains a memory sequence, an Easter egg the developers left as a nod to the original games. There are several of these throughout the entire game though. After squeezing through the gap in the wall, we enter another hallway. The stairwell door is locked, so we head to apartment 217, where we heard the gunshots from, apparently from the note. There's a red shopping cart inside, and what do we find? Well, it's a goddamn gun, baby. A cool detail here is that the walls are riddled with bullet holes, confirming that the neighbor's suspicion that someone was losing their mind and shooting up the place was actually not that crazy to begin with. After backtracking, we find ourselves in an apartment from earlier, but now the TV here is actually on, and there's a corpse slumped over in the sofa chair. If you use a camera mod, you can examine the body up close, and again, it looks a lot like James, and I think it's time we talk about that. Alright, my theory. We're trapped in some kind of loop, possibly a purgatory of sorts, where James keeps trying and failing to reach the end, possibly finding Mary. Now, each version of him left behind is a past attempt, reinforcing the idea that Silent Hill is making him face his inner demons. This concept reminds me of Signalis, a game inspired by Silent Hill 2 very heavily, where the protagonist, Elster, is also stuck in an endless loop of failed attempts. So you keep seeing her body over and over in the game, and it's just her repeating the cycle. Now, could these corpses be failed versions of James from previous loops? I don't know. We pick up the key to room 212. When entering the room, we use the balcony to cross over to the neighbor's apartment, where one of the mannequins is already waiting for us. In room 207, we also encounter a few enemies and a giant welcome home sign, which can actually be shot. Doing so rewards you with the Let's Not Party achievement. Now, moving towards the balcony stairs, we encounter one of the dumbest roadblocks I've ever seen. Just a bunch of shit on the floor, which I think is pretty stupid. But room 208 offers more intrigue. Inside, we find a wardrobe filled with papers, possibly belonging to an office worker. And on the desk, there's another note. You must think I'm cruel, but this prison is of your own making. The choice was yours. I watched you make it over and over again. This time, it's not going to be any different, and I'll be here, watching. Right next to the note, we can now use the golden apple to open a wardrobe, revealing a peephole. Now, through it, we glimpse a strange room covered in scribbles, with a metal box in the center. After moving the wardrobe, we can squeeze through the gap. The first thing that grabs our attention is a riddle on the wall. By following the clues carefully, we decipher the code for the padlock on the big metal safe. It mostly just needs you to read what's on the wall, follow the pattern, and type in the numbers. Especially in higher difficulties, this puzzle can be difficult, but I really love it. It's all about paying attention to the little details. Inside the safe, we find our first coin for the downstairs puzzle, the coin of man. We also pick up the second floor stairwell key just outside the puzzle room as well. With the stairwell key in hand, we can head up to the third floor. The entire floor looks like it's under renovation. Plastic sheathing draped everywhere, giving the place a unfinished feel. A small detail here, when you're injured, entering the game menu causes the screen colors to shift, visually showing your health status, yellow for slight damage, orange for medium, and red for near death. But that's not all. Later on in the game, if you guys get super low health, you'll actually see a cross in the bottom right. This cross is actually from the original game. This is how your health was shown to be low in the OG Silent Hill 2, and this only happens when you're really low health.
There, fuck. Oh, there's a note. Okay, let's read this. I know there's something here. I know. I can feel it. But it's not. It's underneath, pulsing, trying to get out. Is it trying to get out? Or should I get in? I have to uncover it. Okay, flip it. Anything on the back? Oh, there is. Nice. I always like when there's shit on the back. Peel it off layer by layer so I can see it. YouTube is fucking wacky with that shit. Oh my god. Not gonna lie. Aiming is a little clunky, which I guess is the kind of the point.
Naturally, our next destination is down through the blood trail gap in the wall. On the other side, there's a washroom where we find a six-pack of bloody apple soda on top of the machine. Fun fact, in the original game, you had to use the soda in the trash chute to push down one of the puzzle pieces. And they kept that here. If we go to the chute and shove it down, the same thing will happen.
Oh, bro. Anytime I hear that sound. Oh, you fucking asshole.
In room 312, we find another note that continues the writer's creepy ramblings from before. It's as if they're on the hunt for something. Something inside the walls. I was wrong. Wrong. No, I wasn't. But I wasn't entirely right. I need to peel off more. Something more blood-closed. I was looking outside, but it's in me. There's someone inside me. As we finish the letter, we can now head back outside to where the trash chute was. With the coin in our possession, we now have 2 out of 3 for the puzzle downstairs.
Okay,
heading to room 116, we hear screeching noises from within.
Hey, who's there?
It wasn't me. I didn't do it. I swear.
Hey, are you okay?
I didn't do anything. He was like that when I got here.
He? Oh, you mean the man back there? In the kitchen?
I didn't do it. I swear I didn't kill him.
It's all right. I'm not saying that you did. Look, my name is James. James Sunderland.
Eddie.
Eddie, okay. So, do you live here, Eddie?
No. I'm not even from this town. It's just...
Something brought you here.
Yeah, you could say that.
Oh, boys, look. It's actually Benny. No, fuck, I meant Eddie. Right, so this guy is an interesting little fella. See, he's important for the later parts of the story, and I love how they gave him this greasy-looking, ugly design, just making him look repulsive. However, if we look around, we'll also find the body that made him puke. It's just a bunch of body parts and legs sticking out of a fridge. And I actually prefer this in the original, because in that one you don't actually get to see exactly what's in the fridge. You instead just see the legs kind of sticking out, which I think is a little bit more impactful in that version of the game.
The apartment also has football memorabilia everywhere. Whoever lived here, likely the dead guy, must have been a huge fan, or maybe even a player of himself at some point. After Eddie's scene, we jump out the window and find ourselves in the apartment pool area. Funny enough, there are a few lying figures lounging in the pool, chilling with a red baby stroller in the center, just like the red basket thingy we found the gun in earlier. There was this hilarious animation where James would trip and fall over if he walked too close to the edge in the originals. Here, it doesn't exist, which is kinda sad. After knocking out the pool monsters, we grab the third and final coin. The coin of the snake.
It's gotta be this thing, isn't it? Let me guess, it's the coin. Yep, I thought so.
Now, with all the coins, we can solve the puzzle. Now, depending on the chosen difficulty, the riddles can be more or less challenging, but basically, you just have to read the riddle and figure out where to place the coins in order. Once solved, the box opens, revealing the key to room 201. Well, time to head there.
Okay. Fuck was that? The female voice.
The voice, like a scared breath of a woman, fills the space with a strange energy. The room itself gives off an unsettling vibe, and one I can't quite just explain, but if you look at this place, something about it may ring a bell for some of you. The rest of the apartment seems ordinary, except for another strange note we find. Pyramid Head returns, this time holding a mannequin in a disturbingly sexual way. James hides in a closet, making this whole thing feel oddly voyeuristic. The scene plays out similarly to the original, with James firing shots to drive Pyramid Head away, but I have to say, I prefer the original version of this scene. Something about it felt more abstract and even more unsettling. With Pyramid Head gone, we open the next door. What we find is nothing. Just a door leading to nowhere. The feeling is incredibly liminal, like we're stepping into the back rooms of Silent Hill. The camera angle even shifts to a Dutch angle, making everything just feel a little bit more off. The journey now moves into the Otherworld. It's a decayed and twisted reflection of Silent Hill, defined by rusted metal textures and decay. It's a space reminiscent of Stranger Things' Upside Down. This location is of course also central to Silent Hill as a series, because it's a mirror of the town that is more disgusting. It's the evil side of it. It's also mystical in a sense, and it does appear in most of the other games too. We do, however, encounter a variant of the lying figure, which is a very, very specific one. Unlike the previous encounters, these ones will emit poisonous gas that will explode in a grotesque burst when they are defeated. However, they do also mimic the swelling and bursting seen in a real decaying body whenever they are actually killed, because they will just burst and explode, which is disgusting. On the way, one room stands out very specifically. It's the ominous M carved into its door. This one is strange. There's moths scattered across the floor next to it, and it gives this feeling of being the infamous moth room from the original game, which then comes to mind. As we're about to enter the next place, eerie mannequins will line the walls, sending honestly shivers down my spine. Just their rigid appearance and just their presence right in front of us gives me this feeling of like they're gonna move eventually. Like I kept feeling like they're gonna suddenly attack us, which never actually happened, but it did give this underlying sense of dread. This room contains the clock puzzle, and this is an interesting one because it requires a few different things, and it's a little bit longer than it was in the original game. See, first of all, we require dials as well as clues from a nearby note to solve it. And there's also a wall nearby which bears 3 names associated with varying heights, that being Henry, Mildred, and Scott. These are apparently the children, and we need to match their heights as well as the dials up together. But first, we go outside and look for something else. Avoiding some mannequins.
Oh no, not again. I'm just gonna back the fuck off.
And then eventually getting to a door with the letter H on it.
I'm just gonna BTFO, dude. Okay. Henry! Hello, Henry!
We don't really know what to do because all we hear is some smashing noises before we break down a wall and find a crib containing some ammo.
Ah, yes. A baby crib with ammo in it. The most American thing you'll ever see.
Further up, we find a new puzzle. It's inside of room 307 and features a radio hanging from the ceiling. I don't know how fucking safe that is, but it doesn't matter. Playing a somber, almost lo-fi version of Magdalene, the song we also heard from the, well, jukebox earlier. Now, following its chain to the side room, we uncover the room 306 key, as well as a large wheel. Taking it, however, triggers a sudden onslaught of enemies, which we have to fight them all off. Returning now to the radio room, it will actually fall down and we're able to get access to the first clock piece. It's the hour hand that's found inside the fallen radio. Back where the clock is actually located, there's also a note nearby. Henry takes one step, steady in his pace. Mildred hurries past, sleek and full of grace. But then here comes Scott, bound to win the race. With the riddle's answer being pretty clear here. Given that the handle we got was the hour hand, that's the slowest moving one, it's clearly going to be Henry, who is that one. Now, if we actually attach it and go to the exact point from the wall where the clock should be at, a loud ringing will go through the apartment and things will change a bit. The door with the giant H on it is now unlocked, revealing a oddly quaint room. If we walk around it, it looks normal, as if nothing is wrong in here, but there is something inside of here that is waiting for us. It's another puzzle, which is requiring us to center two pieces on it. Alright, now we look around this little room still to find more details. One of them is by smashing through the fat-ass wall, and what we find on the other side is a horrific sight. Somebody decided to rip a fat one in the toilet.
And just like any regular guy, James is gonna shove his hand really deep in that toilet.
Alright, it's toilet time, baby! Yeah, I'm trying to find this fucking key. It's getting ridiculous. This is like too much for a video, okay.
The inside of the toilet holds the minute hand. A nasty but fun detail is that James's arms will be covered in shit after this, at least for a while until he finally is hit by some rain from the outside world, which is kind of a cool little detail. Exiting the toilet, the entire room has now rotted away, the same as the remainder of the other world. The door is also now open, allowing access to previously inaccessible rooms, like room 209, where I encountered by far the scariest bathroom of my life, but also a terrifying sound in the background. This voice, whatever it was also in the original game, but has long been speculated upon what its meaning is. Well, we don't really know what it is, but it does add this random creepy element because you just hear a random dude whispering into your ear, which is just terrifying.
Probably gonna be chased the fuck. Oh, you fucking asshole. Oh, they tricked me. Holy shit, they tricked me.
Now, I love things like this because this is such an unpredictable moment. You've gotten so used to this sense of comfort of kind of expecting things where you want them to be, but what the game does here is disrupt that. It changes things up and it tricks you and keeps things a bit fresh, especially the fear. Room 201 also holds the next puzzle piece, the Swan Head.
It's like the shadow of something hanging. Why is it look? Oh, you fucking bastard! Why the shape though? For what is it causing it? This? Really? Oh, okay, I see. That's it. Very disgusting though, I'm not gonna lie.
Balancing it with a pigeon statue opens a box holding a winged key, which we can use on the bedroom right next to the puzzle. All we find here is a big hole. So you guys know, just like in any other Silent Hill game, the moment you see a giant hole that you gotta jump down, it means we're going deeper and darker into the man's psyche. The dive lands us in a room with a familiar desk. This desk could be a hint to the original coin puzzle, perhaps from Silent Hill 2, as it has a similar shape to it. Now, we find room 109, which contains two doors. One is fully barricaded, but the other one is painted white and is accessible. So, we go and enter it.
Oh, it's you.
Yeah. I'm James.
Angela.
Angela. Okay.
This entire scene with Angela is perfectly executed. It does lose some of its elements from the original, in particular the mirror moment where Angela is seen from above and the ground no longer has this Rorschach test-looking pattern on the ground. The entire scene, however, though, originally gave off this feeling of a giant mirror showing us a reflection of what each of these people want to see, or better yet, as if both James and Angela are speaking to themselves here, as both are facing towards the mirror images of their own rather than each other.
We're all the same.
I'm not like you.
Are you afraid? Sorry.
It's okay. Did you find your mother?
No. Not yet.
Did she live here? In this building?
I don't know.
After mentioning his dead wife, it's as if Angela snaps back to this childlike behavior, almost as if she's being thrown right into her childhood self again. She freaks out when asked about the knife and eventually leaves it for us to take. The tip of the knife is either bloodied or rusted, sort of hard to tell, and the key we find near the knife is called the key of resilience, perhaps the resilience that Angela has in her search, or perhaps the resilience in some other way. In the original game here, we actually find a photo on the floor as well, the picture featuring a young girl with her parents. However, the piece of the photo featuring the father has been ripped apart, which can kind of add this feeling that maybe this is a picture of Angela, which would explain the childlike behavior. The key of resilience unlocks the S door, leading to a room with a piano as well as sheet music for Scriabin's Vers la Flamme, which I would assume when I translate it says towards the flame, perhaps foreshadowing a little bit of the fiery future for Silent Hill. We also find a Polaroid that is labeled as Forever Together, featuring room 208, where Pyramid Head once appeared from before. It could be a nod to James and Mary's past, that they promised to be forever together. There remains only one more room to check now, the one with the letter M, and if the moths are any indication, we're in for a shitty time, and that's exactly what happens. Once we enter, there are so many disgusting things in here. First of all, there are taxidermied moths on the walls, which, I mean, is done for, I guess, the sake of preservation, and I don't know if it's pareidolia or something else, but they do all seem to have patterns on them, and if we count all of those and then type them into the padlock on one of the doors, it will open and give us access to a new room. Inside, it features a big gooey hole, so I'm just gonna shove my hand inside and yoink, it's the last piece. On my way back, I did run across some stairs as well as a dead lying figure. Now, I never killed it, so something felt off about it. Well, it turns out this is the exact room from the first Pyramid Head fight in the original game. You would be actually fighting in this tight corner and it would be filled with water. So I just love it when they add in these little details and just things that call back to the original games. With the clock puzzle solved, we can now leave through the S door at the bottom floor, where we get introduced to something special. This is our first boss battle, and I'm gonna be real, the fight here actually surpasses the original in my opinion. Not in tension, because I do think the kind of claustrophobic and closed space added a little bit more horror to that battle the first time around, because you're just stuck in this really small room with him. But here's the thing, in this version, they actually make it into a proper boss fight more, because he will be smashing things, he'll be rushing at you, charging relentlessly. But here's the thing, you can use bullets just like in the original to slow him down, at least in the first phase. But I will point something out. You technically don't even need to shoot a single bullet. As long as you keep your distance and run away, he will not be able to do much because the battle doesn't matter how much you shoot. It's on a timer. After about 3 minutes or so, a siren will ring out, and this will signal the end of the battle. And the noise that echoes through the battlefield is reminiscent of a warning sound sent out whenever the military are testing their warning systems in case of an incoming attack, or for those in the United States, it would most likely sound like a tornado siren of sorts. Finally, we're outside again. Time to bring up the map and figure out where to go next.
Where the fuck am I going?
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, there is a lot of this in the game where you just pick up your map, you check where to go, and then you pick up the map again like 2 seconds later. I do think actually though it is kind of funny and I enjoy it. The mysterious little girl reappears. Now, her name isn't revealed yet, but even in the original Silent Hill 2, she had James running in circles. The original scene with her here had a more haunting, almost dreamlike tone, as if she wasn't aware of all the monsters around here, but that was just something that we're seeing, hinting that Silent Hill's twisted reality may look different through her eyes, and maybe it looks different to everyone.
What's a little girl like you doing here anyway?
I don't know. What's a big dum-dum like you doing here anyway?
Hey, that's not very nice. Didn't your parents teach you any manners? You got there.
None of your business. You didn't love Mary anyway.
What? Hey, wait!
With her gone, we head towards Rosewater Park, a quaint area dotted with statues, pamphlets on Silent Hill's history, as well as a straw hat laying nearby. Perhaps someone was hunting for the One Piece. Now, I'll be honest, the harbor side looks incredible, and a nearby statue adds a little bit of a darker tone to the whole place. In memory of those who died of illness and now sleep beneath the lake. I have no idea what this is referring to just yet, but it could imply that some people are dead underneath the lake of Toluca. But without further distractions, it's time to head to the pier itself.
Mary? No.
This isn't Mary, but Maria. Her face is identical to Mary's, and even their names are basically the same. But unlike Mary, though, she's flirtatious and seductive.
No, my late wife. I can't believe it. Your face, your voice, you could be...
My name is Maria. I don't look like a ghost, do I? See? Warm.
Sorry,
hinting that she knows more about James than she lets on. When he mentions his special place with Mary, she suggests an alternative spot that could be special to him and his late wife. How she would know that, I have no idea, but her movements are sensual, giving this scene an undertone of tension and attraction, if you want to put it that way.
She said she was waiting for me. In our special place.
Let's hear. Hey, easy there. I'm just messing with you. Come on. It's this way.
You're coming with me?
Now, as we're entering Rosewater Park's second area, which is on the other gate, suddenly it's accessible. James even remarks on this unexpected change, and along the way, we find another Polaroid before stopping at a statue of a woman. Maria then shares the backstory behind this specific statue.
Killed for no real fault of her own by moral, upstanding folk. Common theme, I guess.
What do you mean?
In history, you know?
With more context given to us about what the statue's meaning is and the history behind it, we can now leave Rosewater Park, and we also, on the way, pass Jack's Inn, which was a motel in the original game as well, but there, it just wasn't really explored much back when you played the game. It wasn't really much you could do there. However, the front desk does have a odd trinket. It's a code locked safe, and the code might be inside of room 107 according to one of the notes. It's also funny because Maria will react with surprise and actually even be frustrated when James goes around smashing car windows. It's loud and pointless to her apparently, which is kind of funny. Another really cool detail is that whenever we try to save our game, she will again react to James saving because she's puzzled as to why he just stands there unresponsive and basically staring into the fucking void. Entering room 106, which feels strangely familiar to both James and Maria, well, Silent Hill 3 players might recognize it. Heather Mason stayed in this very room, and Detective Douglas Cartland's hat sits on a chair as a small nod to the Silent Hill lore of the third game. And now, if we finish up inside of the room, we can move up to room 108 and 107. James will find an outfit in one of the closets, but leaves it for now to focus on finding the code for the safe. So, while we are squeezing through one of the walls and return, Maria is now holding that dress and playfully asks if James would like her to wear it. So, if you guys don't realize, this is the exact outfit that Maria wore in the original Silent Hill 2. And if James ignores her and doesn't respond, she sarcastically remarks that he knows she'd wear it, as it's a classic, which is kind of funny, but also if you talk to her, she'll just act a little bit goofy about the whole thing. Now, down at the actual safe, the code we found was 0451. If you did not know, this is actually a famous code used as an inside joke in game development. This was an actual code used at the Looking Glass Studios over in Cambridge, Massachusetts by developers there, and it became such an inside joke by the people there that it remained as a universal code in multiple games. So 0451, kind of a cool one. However, just as we retrieve the key inside of it, a mannequin attacks Maria, requiring us to defend her, echoing the original game's need to protect her all the time to make sure she stays alive. Though I will be honest, her AI in the original game was pretty solid. So, with the key in hand, we escape from the motel and step onto the foggy streets of Silent Hill once more. Along the way, Maria will actually comment on various details, even asking James about his past with Mary and reacting to an eerie house along the way as well. Noting that there's some broken glass at the entrance, she will mention having a chill and unsettling presence when we go here. Now, the reason for this is that this house is actually tied to Silent Hill 2's Born from a Wish DLC, which specifically explored Maria's origin. So perhaps that is why she is freaked out when she sees this house, because this is the house where her journey actually begins. So yeah, kind of a cool little detail along the way.
Somehow, like a bad memory. It's nothing, really. Tell her if, when you find her.
That I love her.
Oh, then. Lucky her.
What's that supposed to mean?
Strange. This should not be here. James?
Oh shit, we're about to lose our stick, but we do gain something in return.
Okay, so we may have lost our stick, but that's fine. We gained a pipe instead, which is very nice if you ask me. But either way, the thing is, this is arguably one of the most iconic weapons that James ever actually gets. But another thing does happen here. We once more run into a massive storm. However, last time we were on our own, but now that Maria's with us, we gotta kind of juggle everything. We gotta keep her alive, we gotta get away from them, we gotta kill the monsters. It is very complicated.
Eventually, we do escape all the monsters, as well as the storm, and reach a large red door.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, but for some reason, this scene in particular feels like it was done way better in the original game. Just the way that James acts like a literal child, kind of acting aloof, trying to be like, yo, let me get a sneak real quick. Let me see some of those. Let me see some booba. But yeah, the way he acts whenever he sees her reaching for the key in her boot and then in her bra, it's so much more funny. It just fits better. It gives him this goofy nature, even though it's such a serious game. Whereas in the remake, I feel like it does have that sexual tension, but kind of removes the goofiness, which I thought was funny from the first game.
Again, this whole action by Maria is way more erotic than it needs to be, but given where we find ourselves, it sort of makes sense. This is Haven's Night, a strip club that we can observe some interesting stuff inside of. For example, Easter eggs and pictures of what could be the developers on the mirrors, and also Maria suddenly splits away from us and reappears once we enter the club proper. Now, Maria's entire conversation kind of shifts between eerie detachment and kind of a caring concern. At one point, she offers James a drink, and he pauses. His longing for it is clear. He really wants to drink, but ultimately does refuse. In the original, however, it was hinted that James struggled with drinking, and here it's subtly conveyed through his hesitation, a silent nod to this personal battle of his that's going on.
Ready when you are.
James can also examine a poster on the wall featuring an image resembling Maria. Fans may recall that seeing the same poster is something you can do back at the Lookout restroom in the beginning of the first game, as well as in the beginning of this game. When he questions her about it, she teasingly asks if he wants her to be the one on the poster, almost as if probing his desires, which is weird. Why would she do that? It's clearly her on the photo, but she keeps asking this thing of, do you want me to be this thing? As if she's just trying to manifest things he wants her to be. There's also a nurse outfit on display here on one of the sofas, which likely needs no explanation. You know exactly its purpose, but it does have a little bit of context for what comes next. Now, if James actually walks on stage, Maria will make a little playful comment, and if you check the lost and found box, there's a wallet, sunglasses, as well as a photo resembling Mary. These items seem to imply that James might have visited this place in the past, seeking the connection he'd lost with Mary due to her illness, at least the sexual connection that he needed. Now that we've left the club, Maria will actually lead us to another garden, but the thing is, this is not really where we wanted to go. However, Maria shares more of Silent Hill's lore. See, the statue here commemorates a woman that was condemned as a witch and sent to live alone on an island in Toluca Lake. A man from the town loved her so much that he braved the fog each night to reach her and give her food. But one specific night, which was very odd, he actually lost his way. He was following the light that she would shine for him, but he was led astray. He kept rowing for so long until his arms gave out, dying in the lake. The story actually foreshadows elements of Silent Hill 2's main narrative as well.
This was a mistake. I shouldn't have come here.
Before we explore any further, a scream can be heard echoing from the distance.
It's okay. There's plenty of other places to look. We can still...
Come on.
So, naturally, like any idiot, we're going to be following it. Following the sound, we arrive at a movie theater, where voices of specifically Eddie, as well as a little girl, are heard inside. As we jump in, if we do make any noise, it will scare the girl away, and she will run off. Walking around the theater entrance, it's lined with posters from various films, some of which have strange undertones if you actually try to look into them a little bit further. Eddie is inside the theater, and through this conversation, we learn the girl's name. It's Laura, and in the original, Eddie was infamously seen eating a pizza with Laura here, and seemingly unbothered by the chaos around him. Here, he's actually eating Toluca ice cream instead, with strawberry flavor as far as I could tell, and James's reaction is surprisingly calm.
It's probably just Laura messing around.
The little girl? Laura, is that her name?
The original, his frustration with Eddie was much more pronounced. He was actually pissed at him.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
Okay, who ordered a big pizza? Probably you, Eddie. It is what it is. Okay, now I won't lie to you guys. I do think that this scene was definitely better in the original. Again, it's because in that one, the way that James reacts was also much different. But I will say though, a big credit to the game here is they still made Eddie look just like a slobbering pig when he eats. Like the way he just literally grabs the ice cream, honestly, perfectly executed. Though I will be honest, I don't think my pizza was perfectly executed. It ain't looking too good, boys.
There's also a subtle Easter egg here too. Staring at the screen long enough reveals a brief mysterious flash of footage showing somebody doing something. This does hint at things to come. I'm gonna be honest, the actual amount of detail they put into just this theater shows how amazing Bloober Team really are when they can get the time and put in the dedication they did with this remake. Even for a setting we only spent a few minutes inside of, they put so much stuff in that makes the theater feel alive and real.
Hey!
As we exit the building, we spot Laura again as she darts away towards Brookhaven Hospital. So together with Maria, we rush after her. Alright, as we reach Brookhaven Hospital, we start things off with Maria checking herself out near the hospital entrance. There's also a room inside of here with a shotgun cabinet. Strange for a hospital, right? I mean, it could hint at what's to come, which is a possible shotgun pickup in the near future, but it is a little bit odd to see one inside of a hospital of all places. And man, the graphics are so beautiful. Like, look at the lighting with the beams filtering through the window. It just looks impeccable and really like elevates the entire atmosphere here. Like, the graphics in this game are just so freaking good. However, there is a really interesting detail here. There's a self-help poster in the hallway which catches James's attention, but there's a weird twist.
If you experience poor appetite or weight loss, insomnia or hypersomnia, loss of interest in usual activities, feelings of worthlessness.
So oddly, whenever James reads the actual text, the word guilt is missing from the feeling of worthlessness and guilt point, as if James is blocking out this specific word, possibly suppressing some guilt-related emotions. Again, I'm a big fan of all the small little details they've added, and shining the flashlight on Maria, she will react as if it's blinding her, which is a nice little touch of realism, giving her more of a feeling that she's an actual human being. We do spot Laura, and she's fleeing towards the second floor, meaning we'll need to navigate up there eventually. She also draws some stuff on the wall here, but again, this time around the hospital is far larger than the original game, which can take a significantly longer time to explore.
Okay, so it took me approximately 18 hours to complete the remake, which is fine and all, but I will be honest and say that it's mainly because they included a lot of unnecessary fights, which really did not need to be in the game. You're often kind of forced to fight enemies that in the originals was never really a thing you had to do. You never really had to fight these monsters. You could just skirt past them. And that's one of the elements that made Silent Hill 2 so great. The fact that you didn't have to fight monsters, that you could kind of play the way you wanted to. Whereas I feel like the remake almost forces you to go into battles even when you don't want to. Now, I don't think Brookhaven Hospital necessarily is the worst offender of this. There is some places later on that we'll talk about a bit in that regard, but nonetheless though, I think Brookhaven overall is just a fantastic location. Well executed, it looks impeccably good though. So yeah, I'll save my complaints once we get to the one location that definitely felt like a slog to play through.
So, with the hospital map in hand and a mild jump scare in the reception, we find a locker with a key inside. We'll need a code to access it, and we have to hunt for some clues. So we go around spotting some eerie photos of nurses with faces scrubbed out on the walls. Finally, we find a note mentioning the need to count the nurses for the locker code. So we do that. This key will lead us to the basement, where we have to refuel a generator to get the elevator working. However, we gotta cue a little monster fighting, Maria chilling, and gas spilling until we get the elevator on. When we exit the elevator, Maria is unwell. Her illness is reminding James of Mary before her death.
What's going on? Are you sure?
It's nothing. Probably just a hangover. What if you can't find Mary?
When she asks James what it'll do if he can't find Mary, he just dodges the question and leaves her behind.
Okay.
Now you see, in the original game, how often you check on Maria influences the game's ending, so the player's natural choices can actually shape the outcome of what happens here. If you're somebody who cares for Maria and you want to check in on her, make sure she's fine, it will change how things go. The game's reactiveness is something that was always really cool about it. Walking down the hallway, we encounter our newest enemy type, the bobblehead nurse. Their design evoking a very sexualized and erotic aesthetic. Their design could also be a representation of James's repressed urges whenever he came to the hospital to see Mary. Desire, which we got a glimpse of back at the nightclub, where we specifically saw a nurse's outfit. The bobblehead nurses will lunge at us, and their attack patterns have gotten way more difficult to avoid compared to their past versions. They do keep their overtly sexual nature though, but they have gotten so much more creepy. Their movements are just contorted and odd. One tiny detail we can actually notice here but may not be aware of is that on the faces of each one of the nurses, there is a red paper right over their mouths, the same red paper that we use as the save points. Their faces are also covered in a plastic mold, causing them to choke while gasping for air. C1 room. So as we're exploring it, we uncover a hidden drawing, and behind it there's an eye, which is kind of strange. We also find an interview transcript. A trip to the administrator's office also reveals 2 new puzzles: a key held on a mannequin arm needing 3 bracelets, as well as a safe with symbols. On our little hunt, we actually check room M1. Here we have another memory happen, and it's a memory from Silent Hill 2. This is the room where you have to do the lockbox puzzle in the original game. We find a teddy bear in the locker room, which has a needle inside. Thankfully, James doesn't prick himself. We also grab a shotgun, which is a game changer against tougher enemies. Yo, why is she moaning like that? We're able to unlock the stairs to the 3rd floor, clearing out room L1 and finding a notebook.
They brought in the girl today. Poor thing hasn't said a word. She just sits there, head in her hands, sobbing and quivering. I moved her to the corner bed. Seems to have calmed her down a bit. She even smiled at me, I think.
What this book speaks of, I'm not sure. One theory I had is that the girl mentioned is either Laura, as she might have met Maria there in the actual hospital, hence how she even has knowledge of her, or perhaps it could be Alessa Gillespie, which is one of the main characters from Silent Hill 1. Either way, James instead finds himself a hole in the wall, and for whatever reason, his decision is to fall down inside of it and get stuck inside the walls. Probably one of the most terrifying ways to go. Another note similar to the transcript from room M1 is also found. It sounds like a female patient complaining about being stuck with some sort of man all over these notes. We do find the first bracelet here too, the marked one, which has markings on it as if drawn onto it. Before we hunt for the remaining ones, we head back to Maria for a quick check-in with her.
Hey. Any luck finding Laura?
Not yet. How are you holding up?
I'll be okay. Just need a bit more rest. Thanks for checking up on me. It's very sweet of you.
Yeah. Get some rest. Excellent.
On the 3rd floor, we spot Laura hiding. So what we need to do now is beat the shit out of a bunch of enemies and then find our next puzzle task. It's an X-ray machine, and we are missing some of the scans to complete it and figure out what code it's hiding. So with the inner ward key, we can now explore and uncover further notes, as well as a notebook of the doctor's issues with a rowdy patient. Another thing we uncover as well are some sort of keys that have been dropped inside of a drainage pipe. Our best course of action is to find a way to reach whatever object is hidden at the bottom of the pipe. A strange moment here is that in the same room which we're inside of, we can actually see an open window that allows us to go into the hospital's gardens, which can lead us straight to the hospital pool. But first, a few more enemies have to be dealt with. But what we needed is found inside the pool locker rooms, the medical tube. But before we use the tube, we explore the downstairs a bit further. There is a cafeteria which we've had yet to check out previously, and in this case contained a disgusting molding garbage chute, which I did not want to touch.
We also spot a nurse watching some TV. This moment reminded me heavily of this exact sort of scene from Silent Hill Homecoming, where the nurses will stand around watching the TV if they aren't disturbed. With the nurse's office code being in our possession, we can now enter it. Here we uncover the second bracelet from the main office. The next location we head towards is the downstairs drainage pipe, which we can now check using a crafted together item, which was basically the little like pick we found, as well as the like medical tube. It's a bit weird, but yeah. Either way, we can now fish out whatever key is hiding at the bottom. And what we find instead is a key with a chain shaped like an ear attached to it, not too dissimilar from the original games. So, big question here. Why is there an ear-shaped design on it? Well, it could possibly be a reference and callback to the Blue Velvet, which is a movie from 1986. This one begins with the main character finding a severed human ear near his home. Then this ear basically serves as a metaphor for darker things happening underneath the surface of, well, this David Lynch classic. And given the fact that we found this ear underground, would also imply a darker secret underneath all of this. This key will, however, allow us to open up the maintenance hatch to turn off the water supply for the hospital pool. At the bottom of the pool, there are several bodies laying motionless, potentially implying that these people drowned here, as well as a big eye drawing bleeding while staring at us. Inside it, we can pick up a blood-stained bracelet, the last one we need for the puzzle upstairs. Before we solve the puzzle, we actually listen to a recording in the doctor's office. This puzzle can easily be solved by matching the names and colors of the bracelets to the arm. After having done this, the key that it gives us is the one for the back room inside of the office. If we open that, we find a few interesting things. For one, the missing button for the bigger puzzle back in the room, as well as a giant wall with what looks like an evidence board of sorts. Perhaps the doctor was doing some research. And on the other end, we also have a bunch of books, which if we match them up correctly, will tell us exactly how to solve the big puzzle. Having solved that big puzzle now, we have the rooftop key in hand. So we head to Maria, but, well, looking for her, she's vanished. And since she's not here, there's only one thing left to do. We head towards the rooftop. Up here, it's mostly just empty. There's a broken fence, which is a callback to James's previous, well, fall here, so that's a bit of a chilling omen. But the rooftop also contains a disturbing note. The meds made me feel sick today. I don't want to be a bother. I'm just too tired to go on. This entire diary echoes a severely depressed person with the talk of guilt and the desire to run away rather than enduring life's challenges, which is really just sad. I've never really understood who this was about, probably just a person who was struggling inside of the hospital, given that this hospital also had mental patients and not just people with physical injuries. All right, about time to leave. Oh shit! Ooh, we're getting choked out by Pyramid Daddy. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have said that. In some bizarre way, Pyramid Head actually helped push us forward by dropping us onto the side where we last saw Laura, the other end of the hospital, which we didn't have access to. When walking around here, we find notes by the hospital's head doctor. He talks in his notes about the other world, the one that James is experiencing, and how it might stem from the patient's delusions, implying that perhaps everything James is seeing isn't actually real. A room also is filled with straitjackets, which reinforces this ominous feeling that we're inside of a mental hospital, but it doesn't end there. Inside one of the padded cells, we find a blood-stained wall, which specifically is a recall to a previous puzzle that was done here. This specific puzzle had a bunch of blood-like numbers, which you had to remember, but the thing about these numbers was that they would always change, so kind of a cool little callback. Once again, we have found Laura, but this time she's claiming some interesting things. She says that apparently she knew Mary because both of them were in the hospital at the same time, but that, well, Mary loved her, but that she despises James, implying that he never loved Mary to begin with. She even taunts him and mentions that she has a note from Mary that he was meant to read, but that she doesn't know where she left it. And when we try to walk out with her, she remembers that it's in the next by room, so we follow her there.
this is where you left it?
It's in the back. Behind an old pipe.
Okay, wait here. Laura? Open the door, Laura.
This enemy is the Flesh Lips, and the second boss battle in the remake. Its design has stayed the same, but the battle has gotten far more difficult and interesting. See, the Flesh Lips will smash out of the roofs in random locations, and while firing at it, pieces and parts of the metal would break off, which makes the battle feel far more satisfying as an experience. As the original would be more static. They were still dangerous way back then, too, but they would just kind of grab you with their feet and strangle James. However, the Flesh Lips itself is just a metal bed frame of sorts with human limbs protruding out of it with a giant fleshy mouth on the bottom.
Alright, so it is actually speculated that the bed frame that the Flesh Lips is kept inside of is meant to be a prison, most likely representing how Mary felt while being stuck in her bed all along. A sort of metaphor for her being bedridden. And the mouth at the bottom of the bed potentially being a representation of how foul-mouthed and angry she must have been just because of her basically dying and then letting that emotion out on somebody like James. Maybe that's why the mouth is so big and just looks so disgusting.
Running around the room, we can pick up ammunition spread in each corner, which I do think is a relatively standard trope in boss battles nowadays that involve any form of guns, as if the player did not pick up enough ammo, they will just have no way to actually defeat the monsters, so you don't even stand a chance. So that's why they have ammo all around the place. However, after taking down the boss, it seems things are calm again. Shit, never mind. We were taken away by the second Flesh Lips, but now we're being rolled through the hospital on what seems to be a bed, watching things from the perspective that Mary would have seen them the entire time. But that's not the only element at play. This entire scene is taken directly from the movie Jacob's Ladder, which has the main character being pushed through a hospital in this exact same way. They actually even recreated this scene a little bit inside of Silent Hill Homecoming right at the beginning of that game. Hey, would you look at that? We are back in the other world. The hospital is now covered in rusty brown and red walls. The note left by the doctor feels far more extreme this time, almost deranged in their tone, but that's not all. Next to one of the save locations, we find a giant rusted wall fan. This iconic design is found in Silent Hill 1 and Silent Hill 3. It's a motif often associated with the franchise, though its exact meaning is not apparent to me. On the first floor, we encounter the next puzzle. It's the lockbox. Previously, this would appear much earlier in the game, but here it is instead. We can solve it by following the chains that are attached to it. Again, similar to what they did with the puzzle of specifically the radio much earlier on. The nurses are here as well, but with a slightly altered characteristic. Their bodies are now covered in black ooze and they act more aggressively compared to before. The most disturbing discovery is a note written by a woman. She speaks of her dancing with her lover before silence finally descends, implying that perhaps both of them died. The adjacent room also contains a mannequin holding its arms up defensively. Using a hammer nearby, we can destroy one of its arms, and after some further searching, we find a key of bliss. It's an instrument similar to a chisel that would have been used for lobotomies in the past. We can use it on the mannequin to crack its face and reveal the lapis eye key. The second chain leads us to a room with a note. This riddle will provide the answer we need to input a code into the big lockbox. However, before we know the full code, we need this check the sink for the pills, counting them and then turning on a giant clock in the other side by matching up the number of pills. This will trigger a small army of enemies to appear right behind us for a quick fight. So, we only have one chain left now, but on our way to get to it, we find another note. He's there again, looking, staring. He says he'll drag me there. I don't want to. I won't let him take me. This note almost sounds like something written by Mary, as if she was afraid of James or the Doctor whenever either one of them appeared. Keep in mind, we are in the other world, where everything is more contorted, messed up, and even twisted. If this is from Mary, why exactly would she be worried about James or the Doctor staring at her? They're just there for her. Next to a TV, we find an administration key, and in a nearby room, it also contains a Polaroid with the text, "No one knows" on it. This looks like the room where we left Maria earlier. The bedside table is cluttered with pills, perhaps taken by Maria before she left, because we did see her earlier on in a cutscene taking these pills. Inside the director's room, we can now listen to the recorder once more, but this time when it plays, it's just maniacal sounds of a person laughing rather than anything cohesive. Climbing a ladder from inside of the room, we reach a strange area. In the center stands what looks like an execution chair used on death row. If we reach the generator for the chair, we can turn it on, which burns numbers into the seat. This is the final piece of the puzzle that we needed. Finally at the box, we use the codes and the lapis key we found earlier, unlocking it, and inside we find nothing. But something new becomes apparent. A female statue behind a drape can now be seen. We approach it and retrieve a -1 elevator button. With that sorted, we can use the button in the elevator to head downstairs, but not before we hear this.
Everyone, thanks for tuning in. Welcome to another exciting edition of Trick or Treat, where you answer our questions correctly and win a prize beyond your wildest dreams. Or you fail to answer correctly and receive the punishment. It's all in the hands of our lucky contestant, James Sunderland.
For whatever reason, there is a quiz inside the elevator. This returns from the original game, but they changed the voice actor, and it feels like this kind of removes a little bit of that jolly yet crazy excitement from the original moment of the game. The new actor does a great job sounding almost evil and sinister, but lacks the sort of abnormal qualities that the previous voice actor had, sounding a little bit more like a crazy circus leader or something. That's more of the vibe he gave off. Nonetheless, the 3 questions we get include one about how many people passed away during a disease spread in the 1800s. The answer is 67, as we learned from one of the statues way back at Rosebud Epoch Harbor, where it mentioned that 67 bodies were buried at the bottom of Toluca Lake. The second question asks for the names of one of the roads in Silent Hill. And then the final question being about one of the 2 sibling victims, specifically the ones killed by the murderer, Walter Sullivan. And we have to give them the name Miriam, which we know from the newspaper we read back in the apartments. If we answer everything correctly, later down the line we will be rewarded with something, except I ended up not even answering the quiz, so it is what it is. Now that we're in the basement, we are on the hunt for something. We don't know what it is until we come across a ring on a table, along with Maria reappearing.
Oh. Maria, I thought... Sorry. Anyway, I'm glad you're alive.
Anyway? What do you mean, anyway? I was almost killed back there. I have never been so scared in my whole life.
Maria seems almost angry at James for leaving her in the room, frustrated that he only cares about his dead wife. Her actions are honestly strange. We barely know her, yet she acts as if James is her lover, which, yeah, doesn't make any sense. Rain. Somehow, there's rain inside. Maria tries to keep the things just light and fun, but James doesn't seem amused by it at all. The pool from before now appears as an infinite, unending dark depth. What's down there, we may never know, but imagery evokes a sort of liminal feeling for me. Something that looks mundane, yet feels so lonely and empty that it creates an anxious and uneasy sensation. Another Polaroid can be found, this time stating, "They mustn't know," with a bloody bed shown on it. Mustn't know what exactly. The bed is again similar to the one Maria laid in previously. So, is it something she's hiding? Is it something we're hiding? What's going on? We finally find the fridge. Now, James isn't strong enough to open it himself, but after some complaining, Maria does help him, though she does make a mockery of him. Inside, there's another ring. She almost scoffs at it, simply handing it over to James as if to imply that, marrying him or having a ring, that's not something this girl wants. And now that we have both rings, we can head up back to the statue and place them on it, just like in the original game, which will open up a new path. However, it seems Maria is hesitant to enter the room, almost afraid of what waits on the other side.
What's wrong? I thought you wanted to get out of here.
I know. It's just... something doesn't feel right.
Come on. It's gonna be fine.
As we leave through the stairway, we uncover a new note. It's done. What exactly is done? Again, we don't really know, but on the back, it says, sick no more. Perhaps what's done is Mary's life. She's gone, and she's no longer sick. The stairways are long and winding, but at the bottom, somebody waits for us. Is here again, baby, and we gotta make a run for it. As we escape, we need to keep Maria alive. She has to stay close because if Pyramid Head catches her, it leads to an instant game over and we need to redo everything again.
Come on, hurry!
Maria's death seems to destroy James. His collapse to the ground and the expression on his face are so well done, conveying a striking sense of defeat. I think this scene hits much harder than it did in the original. The remake really pulled off this feeling of him genuinely feeling defeated really well. We find ourselves back at the entrance, where we discover the doctor's journal notes again. The notes that reference the Otherworld are here too, and it's a key for the entrance that we can use to leave outside, where we see Laura running away. We are back, baby! We're on the streets again. Woo! Okay, let's make sure we save, and now you'll also notice that nurses will appear outside, alongside lying figures and mannequins, so we make our way. The streets of Silent Hill are now also in the Otherworld, so we encounter some strange new creatures along the way, and also cross a chain link bridge. We do hear something underneath us though, but on the other end, there's a save location inside of an old RV, along with a map and a brochure with the words letter and wrench marked in specific locations. Along the way, we pass Neely's bar again, but now it's completely wrecked. Above the jukebox, red text is scrawled saying, "If you really want to see Mary, you should just die. But you might be heading to a different place than Mary, James." This is by far the most sinister message we've read so far, directly telling James to essentially end himself, and this goes beyond anything Laura would write, so who did it? Is it somebody trying to threaten us? Leaving Neely's, we finally reach the place marked on our map, only to hear a loud ringing phone.
Hello? Anyone there?
Picking it up, there's no one on the other end. However, there is a note here. Or perhaps you are a fool. The truth usually betrays people. You should know. The key's in the park, at the feet of the praying woman. The wrench will open the gates. The key will let loose the abyss. Again, this is like the previous one we read. There's this condescending and hateful tone, but at least now we know where to go next. First, we grab the wrench, then we head back towards the park. Our path takes us back to a place you may remember, the wall with the giant blood red text next to a door, reading, The door that wakes in darkness, opening into nightmares. And it's currently dark, it's at night, and we're in the other world of Silent Hill. So we are in a nightmare, and what waits on the other side is indeed going to be nightmarish as we cross through. Inside we find an even larger door, and after saving, we enter into it to find the same chain bridge from earlier, but it's only much larger now, with a noise approaching us. What lurks beneath us is the Mandarin. This is a creature similar to the Closer from Silent Hill 3. Its appearance resembles a female body with dangling legs and elongated arms that just end in a massive mouth-like appendage. In the original game, you only really ever encounter these things like twice, and since melee attacks don't really work on them, you're forced to use ammunition. But killing them yields essentially nothing and is only really a waste of ammo, so it's best not to deal with them at all and just run away. Now, what these guys actually symbolize is sort of harder to determine. They feel like prisoners of their own making, stuck beneath us and yearning to escape, almost like the bridge is a sort of prison for them, or else they're gonna fall down into the empty dark abyss if they don't hold on. Perhaps they are representing the feeling of being trapped, similar to how Mary may have felt while being sick, stuck in that bed, or how James feels stuck in this place and also stuck with her. I did end up killing one of the Mandarins, but the hardest thing about them is the intense screeching noise that they stun you with. With two appearing at once, it's easiest just to run away. Getting away from them, we find ourselves entering Rosewater Park again, where we come across Angela.
I guess things never really stay the same, do they?
I guess not.
I don't think she's here anymore, James.
These added scenes with Angela really set a specific tone around her presence here. She seems to be experiencing a nightmare of her own. When asked about Laura, she says she hasn't seen her, as if she's never even existed here. But when James tries to reach out to her, Angela freaks out again, just like before, as if touching her makes her go crazy. Checking the statue that she was observing, it's from the town legend about the lady banished to the lake. And we do find a key as well as a note. My patient buried it here. I knew, but it did nothing. It may be uneasy to have such a thing near. I wasn't looking for the truth, I was looking for tranquility. I also saw that thing. I fled, but the old society was sealed. No one dares to approach that place. Now, I offer you the key. If you still do not wish to stop, James, I pray to the Lord to have mercy on your eternal soul. It seems the person leaving these ominous notes is directing us towards Silent Hill Historical Society, but there are still a few challenges ahead. Along the way, we see familiar board signs from around the original game, which we do come across, as well as the garage lever. We also find a memory in the form of a door. At first, I didn't recognize it, then I realized it was the original Haven's Night door, meaning there's another place nearby worth investigating, which you guys may remember.
Oh, yes. We've got Pete's Bowl in the game. Yes, so Pete's Bowl, for those of you who do not know, is from the original Silent Hill. This is where you technically would have met Eddie and Laura together, and where Eddie would have been slobbing on, his other pizza. Not this one, this one's mine. But basically, this is where we would have met him, and this is where James utters the famous line,
"This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?"
She said she was fine by herself. She said a fatso like me would just slow her down.
Now, I don't know about you, James, but I do love me some pizza. Though it's never explained how the hell Eddie actually got his hands on it. Like, that's never actually a thing that they explain. And of course, a big complaint that people have is that this scene wasn't included properly. Instead, you just get a little Easter egg for it here, where James will say the same words if you talk to it.
Personally, I preferred the original's execution. James's reaction, his voice actor's almost goofy, immature response to Eddie eating pizza instead of trying to escape, felt like the perfect contrast to the town's almost craziness. In the remake, James seems more in tune with what's happening. In the original, the strange voice lines made everyone feel like they had a few screw loose, but In the remake, it's more otherworldly, as if everyone is lost in a fog. Both feel off, but in the original, the off vibe came from everyone's bizarre responses to the horrors around them. In this one, it's more just feeling off in a different way. At the end of the street, we find another corpse dressed in James's clothes, along with a note saying, "I can only leave by not leaving." Now, as we progress throughout this journey, it has felt more and more to me like these corpses could be previous James Sunderlands who have all gone through the trial and error process of trying to enter or escape Silent Hill. Now, as we try to leave the body, we hear noises of monsters, and turning around, we see the corpses of two mannequins. This is a direct callback to the original game where two mannequins suddenly jump out of the bushes and attack you. With the key in hand, we can access the historical building. Inside, there's a save point and numerous paintings of the town. Everything from Silent Hill maps to a large drawing featuring none other than Pyramid Head himself. Surrounded by flesh lips, there's also a book with a detailed retelling of the story of the woman from the lake and her lover, along with an eerie picture of a square-looking hole. Towards the back, there's a staircase made out of cobblestone, descending deep down below. We run down for what feels like a minute or two, at times almost losing track on how far we've actually gone, probably intentional to create disorientation, as though we're endlessly spiraling down without knowing if we're getting anywhere. At the bottom, we find notes and what appears to be a prison cell. So, you guys know where we are now. More pictures are on the walls, including one of two men in white and red helmets, resembling Pyramid Head. They're clearly executioners of sorts, suggesting that Pyramid Head might be linked to them in some way. And here it is. The hole from the picture that we saw earlier stands right before us. If you know anything about holes in this game, as I've talked about before, you might be aware that this game does have a lot of symbolism that is used when it comes to holes. In particular, there is this one great hole secretly are dug where Earth's pores ought to suffice, as Lovecraft put it. Basically, these dark pits symbolize digging deeper and deeper into the human psyche, often unearthing things that lead to dissonance or even madness, going so far down where regular does no longer exist. Now, the bottom of the hole is empty, but breaking a wall on the side opens up further exploration. Here, we find a key labeled the Spiral Key, representing the downward spiral we seem to be following into James's delusions, or perhaps the evil embedded within Silent Hill. The room we're in now is absolutely terrifying. In the original, you'd almost get locked in here, but with the remake, there is higher graphic fidelity, so the bugs and cockroaches make it feel even worse. Now, what we need to do is to look at the actual keypad and punch in the right code by looking at where the smears are from previous people. Doing this allows us to escape. But fear not, our descent into horror isn't over yet. It's only really beginning. Another hole actually waits for us, and at the bottom of this one, we find ourselves in the prison cafeteria. On a side table, there's a large stone tablet, a piece of the gallows puzzle inside of Toluca Lake Prison from the original Silent Hill 2, as well as somebody you guys will recognize.
Ain't no big deal. Just put the gun to their head.
Eddie?
Oh, hi, James.
What happened here? Who was that?
I don't know. It just came at me.
Okay. So he attacked you, and you shot him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. He made me do it.
Okay, calm down, Eddie. Any idea why he would do that?
I don't know. He came out of nowhere. Tried sneaking up on me in the dark. I heard footsteps, so I turned back and he was right there.
Eddie's sounding completely unhinged now. Earlier, he seemed just nonchalant, but with this blatant lying and story changing, it's clear we can't trust him. It's starting to feel like the man he killed might not have been in self-defense.
You can't just kill someone because of the way they looked at you.
You should see your face, James.
Now we're able to enter the prison and find our first bit of rifle ammo, which makes sense because we do find the rifle inside of a locked cabinet. Nearby, there's a chapel with a massive cross covered in barbed wire, where we find a
heavyweight. It's not all that we uncover here though. In the priest's office, there's also a syringe. Seems like the father might have been up to some questionable activities. Now that we can check the prison cells, there are multiple lying figures inside, along with notes, drawings, and a few other items. But the biggest discovery is these stone tablets with Hebrew text and animal carvings on several doors. It looks like we have to open these, but first we have to head into the prison yard. And it holds our next key, a scale of justice. Now here we can place the weight that we found from earlier and it will open one of the doors for us. And behind the statue is another one. It's a carving of a man hanging with two pyramid heads pulling the ropes on the sides. We don't really know what the purpose is just yet. So we head back inside where we power up some generators which temporarily light up the area. The ticking sound as they start to go out actually builds some decent tension in this place, knowing we'll be in the dark any second. So once we go through inside the snake door, we find an electric chair, once used to execute death row inmates, but now just laying there empty. And holy hell, here come the spider mannequins. Yes, spider mannequins. These things will crawl along the walls just like spiders, and they're the scariest part of the entire game. The sounds they also make and their jerky, unpredictable movements genuinely to my core terrified me while playing this game. Nearby, we find a photo of a mother and a child with the caption, "We'll be together soon." Its meaning is unclear. There's also a mini puzzle here we have to do, which is to short circuit the electric room chair and then grab a medium weight from it.
Okay, let's pause for a minute. Now, I've rambled on about how much I love this game all this time, but I'm gonna be real with you. The prison is the most monotonous and just overall unnecessarily long part of the entire game, kind of ruining the experience a little bit. Now, I do think the actual game is great, but sometimes I do think that perhaps letting it run on for too long and extending certain things just made you kind of lose a little bit of that edge. And they stop feeling scary or even impactful anymore if you keep seeing them too much. And that's exactly what the prison did to me.
Now, with one part of the puzzle in hand, we can go upstairs and find a shiv along with a note mocking one of the other prisoners who was apparently losing his mind while being threatened inside the prison. And while on the hunt for these different weights, we enter the communal showers and baths, which feel a little bit ominous. It looks like a boss battle setup. There are objects to vault over and even ammo scattered around, which gives me a sketchy vibe. At the end, there's a giant fan with another hole that we can stick our hand into, and if we do find another weight. And of course, right after doing that, every single enemy that was lying dormant suddenly springs up and attacks us. I'll admit, it's a cheap scare tactic to force a fight right after finding a puzzle piece, but I also get what they're going for. Back at the statue, we can now use our new heavy weight to unlock another path, so we gotta head upstairs. While upstairs, we do get to see one of the few jump scares that actually existed in the original Silent Hill 2. See, this scream happens in the original game too, sounding like a woman in distress. With the free roam camera mod, we can check under the toilet to find nothing. It's empty. And outside the bathroom is the phrase, "Reap what you sow," painted recently onto the wall. In the nearby recreation room, there's also a nurse that's watching the TV again. I don't know what the exact purpose of this is, maybe just to symbolize how nurses in, I guess, prisons and or hospitals would just watch TVs while relaxing during their lunch breaks, or maybe it's a reference to Scrubs, I don't know. One note in the room mentions a disease, apparently spreading throughout the prison, causing mass panic. This could be the same disease that killed 67 people now lying at the bottom of Toluca Lake, or it's unrelated. It's not very clear. Outside the room is another memory from the past. Melted wax, a horseshoe, and a lighter. These are all callbacks to a puzzle in the same location from the previous game, or specifically from Silent Hill 2, where you had to get all those items together to open up a new path out of the prison. With the upper floor key in hand, as well as notes about the sick prisoners, we know our next destination. So, unlocking the door, we find ourselves above the chapel from earlier. We can look down into it or move forward into the warden's office, where we can uncover a typewriter with the word "sick" typed over and over again. As we head downstairs again, we explore a specific prison cell filled with paintings by one of the prisoners. Some feel joyful, while others scream of paranoia if you look at them. This same room existed in the previous game, and I wasn't always really sure who this was supposed to be connected to. Maybe Walter Sullivan, maybe not, I don't know, maybe you guys know. The basement holds the solitary confinement area. At first, it seems normal, but there's a strange symbol on the walls here, similar to the ones used by the cult in previous Silent Hill games. One of the solitary cells even has metal spikes just jutting out of it, and when we pick up the final weight here, the door slams shut behind us. And honestly, who the hell is making all that noise now? It's just terrifying hearing it from the outside and not really being able to do anything until the door finally opens. We can now quickly run back to the prison yard with all the pieces to complete the scale puzzle. Once the weights are perfectly balanced, the statue drops an object, the executioner's lever. Using it upstairs where the big mural of a man being hung by the pyramid heads is, we can access the puzzle behind the wall, and the statue of the hanged man, well, here it is. It's the face of the prisoner puzzle. All the people here described in the text in front of us have committed crimes, but we need to determine which one of them is innocent. It's a unique puzzle, and on higher difficulties, the answers and clues will shift, requiring you to rely on intuition to identify the truly innocent person, but this time around, it is pretty straightforward. So, once we're confident in our choice, we pick one of the nooses surrounding the execution area, and if we choose correctly, James pulls the right one, and a new path will open. I'm not gonna lie, the imagery here is intense. The way the camera frames James's head within the space of the noose gives an eerie hint that the noose could be for him, at least from his perspective. He imagines that it's supposed to be for him. It's kind of well executed. We are even deeper now, surrounded by bodies in the prison morgue, and yet another hole awaits in front of us. Oh great, would you look at that? We're going down another one of these. Well, finally, not a hole. Instead, we find a rusty elevator, and we find ourselves no longer in the prison. This place feels both familiar and strange. It looks like an apartment complex, but there is a weird vibe around it. Reading the newspaper on the wall, it says that the BOF, a man later identified as Thomas Oro, a lumberjacker aged 39, was discovered in lying face down. The probable cause of death, multiple stab wounds to the front of the neck and left side of the torso by a sharp-edged weapon. The estimated death was somewhere between 11 p.m. and 12:30 midnight. Due to signs of struggle in the room and lack of a murder weapon, police are considering this a homicide and have opened a murder investigation. Furthermore, given the fact that the cat in the room was untouched and Mr. Oro had a history of drunkenness and violence, the police suspects that was not a robbery, but rather a crime of passion. The newspaper is stained with blood, and, well, if we move past it, we can hear something in the distance. It sounds like Angela's voice down the hallway, and the door leading to her voice is covered in newspaper clippings, seemingly put up by someone in most likely a manic state. Inside, the apartment we are looks identical to the one where we first saw Angela holding the knife in the mirror. That time around, the white door from that encounter is now blocked, but the blue door that was previously closed is now open. So, we go in.
Please. I'll be good, I promise. Tell him I'll be good, please.
Angela?
Angela is huddled on the floor, terrified and begging someone to leave her alone. We don't know who that is, though, until...
Daddy!
Our next boss battle has begun. This is Abstract Daddy, the best boss fight in the entire game, and it starts with us being chased through essentially a maze of identical walls. We have to fire multiple shots and bullets to bring this thing down, and I do love how this boss will actually smash through the walls as it hunts for us, adding a sense of urgency and making it feel like we could be caught at any moment, but also just seeing a Silent Hill game where the world actually does shatter in front of us like this, like in real time, and it isn't just a cutscene, is pretty freaking cool. I think it actually adds so much to the experience, and I genuinely love this boss fight quite a lot. Now, after a while, the boss will disappear briefly, just long enough for me to explain a few things.
Alright, what exactly is Abstract Daddy? Well, we can kind of assume that it's related to Angela somehow, but how exactly? Well, if you haven't noticed it, there have clearly been several hints and pointers towards what's going on here. To start with, Angela always behaves like a terrified child, and the newspapers we read just before we entered the room specifically had the name Thomas Oro. Now, if you know Angela's full name, you'll know it's Angela Orozco. So we can assume that Thomas Orozco was her father. Which, if you follow along now, you'll realize that this would imply that she was the one who possibly killed him based on the newspapers. It was noted by the police that whoever did this murder did it out of passion. This is confirmed by the fact that nothing was stolen in the house where her dad lay dead.
But it goes deeper. The reason Angela killed her father is suggested by her behavior. Her childlike fear is clear anytime James tries to help her or touch her. Even if he only means well, Angela was abused, so it was so severe that her fear left lasting scars, causing her to revert to a childlike state. The design of the Abstract Daddy also hints at this trauma. The creature looks like two human bodies, one on top of the other, positioned on a metal bed frame. This could imply that Angela suffered, well, SA from her dad. However, the fact that James can also see this creature raises the question of whether Angela sees it the way we do, or if it appears differently to her. Series monster creator Masahiro Ito actually mentioned the following.
Only Angela knows what she sees, her Abstract Daddy. James, players, and I can't see what she sees. We are on James's side, and who can say if the Abstract Daddy that James sees is the same as hers?
So while we may not know exactly what she is seeing when we witness the Abstract Daddy, we at least know that it does infer something. One thing is certain though, Abstract Daddy represents the trauma and fear Angela endured underneath her father. Interestingly though, during this boss fight, the Abstract Daddy can't attack in specific spots where Angela likely hid as a child. Especially the closet, where you can find Angela's teddy bear and her little hiding spot. This detail really helped me understand why Angela is so distressed, why she recoils from touch, and why she's so lost. The poor girl endured so much pain, which eventually drove her to kill her father. In each room of the fight, there's also subtle details suggesting the father's behavior, like alcohol bottles scattered around. The final stage of the battle actually goes on inside of a rusted part of the Otherworld, where we can finally defeat the Abstract Daddy after dodging a few of its, well, I guess dash attacks if you want to call it that.
Angela. It's okay. Calm down.
Don't order me around!
I'm not. It's okay. It's over.
Don't even try.
With that finished, we have a confirmation of what her father did to her. He violated her and left her with PTSD from the whole ordeal, which is honestly really hard to stomach. Angela even takes a moment here to accuse James of not caring about Mary, suggesting that maybe he once did, but no longer, which is a bit odd, but it leads us towards what maybe the truth is in our case too.
I just want to get my Mary back.
You're Mary. Your own little Mary. At least she was. For a while.
What?
Admit it.
As we continue our journey, we find ourselves in a labyrinth. The first thing we encounter is a series of arms blocking our path. These are actually a direct callback to the intro scene from Silent Hill 2, where human arms form an almost waterfall-looking wall inside of the trailer, which, again, you don't really notice this too often, but it's really just in the intro sequence, so it's kind of a nice little detail. In the center of the room, we see a light guiding us downstairs into a hidden area. This right here is arguably the most iconic scene from Silent Hill 2. Here, things start to come together. Maria is somehow alive.
Maria? Maria! I thought that thing killed you. Are you hurt?
Not at all, silly.
But the thing... It stabbed you. There was blood everywhere.
Stabbed me? What do you mean?
It chased us to the elevator and then...
James, what are you talking about?
Even though we saw her die right in front of us, she talks about a videotape that James made with Mary at Lakeview Hotel, but it's unclear how she'd even know about it. When asked if she is Maria, she replies, "I can be if you want me to," implying that she exists to be whatever James desires, suggesting that perhaps because Mary is gone, Maria has been concocted as a way to bring some sort of semblance of normalcy back to him, or rather, to create his perfect image of Mary the way he remembers her, or the way he wanted her to be. This again suggests that her existence may just stem from James's own need, conjured by the trauma of losing Mary, which could explain her design as well. If we leave and then re-enter the room, we can actually hear Maria humming a song. If we listen to it, it's a very particular one. You see, the song she's humming is Promise. It's the theme song, which is kind of interesting because it's a subtle but meaningful little detail that they included. Just outside the door, our next challenge awaits. It's the Labyrinth puzzle, and here we just have to rotate this giant head, which will shift the world's direction, creating a path forward. The way this place changes is reminiscent of the painting Relativity by M.C. Escher, a piece depicting a world where gravity doesn't apply. Similar imagery actually appears in Harry Potter movies, and the painting represents essentially a world where the usual rules don't hold, just like the area we're about to enter, which holds things beyond our comprehension. Once we've aligned the statue correctly, we reveal 3 labyrinth doors. The first one is a glowing yellow colored one. Inside the center of this room, we find what looks like a body hanging from the ceiling that we need to cut down. So, after running in circles for a while, we discover our first item, a disgusting fridge with a lighter fluid inside. It's, again, reminiscent a bit of the fridge where Eddie's victim was found earlier. The second piece is a lighter wick, found inside a creepy hole in the wall. And the last room we check is the most interesting one. It looks like an office. And after taking down a nurse enemy inside, we search the desk and find the iron key. Something about this office feels off though. This could be James's own office, representing the mundane desk jockey duties that bring nothing more than ordinary experiences to his life. At least that is my interpretation. Now, to reach the final piece, we have to turn off boiling water, filling a bathtub, which then floods the room, allowing us to grab the broken lighter. If we combine all 3 items, we can now light the rope on fire and make the body fall down. Alright, we're back at the start, or at least it looks like it. We've cleared the yellow door, but there are 2 more to go. Next up is the middle door, where we immediately encounter a spider mannequin. Again, the most terrifying enemy type, so we have to tread very carefully here. I'm gonna be real though, I spent most of my time in this particular, labyrinth because I got lost. Just like in the original Labyrinth section of Silent Hill 2, eventually you will figure out where to go, but it does take a while because I found a chain link fence that we need to cut, but we'll need some wire cutters to do that, so let's figure it out. Oh, never mind, it's Pyramid Head instead. Wait, it's Pyramid Head? You see, fortunately, he's not impossible to deal with here. He serves as a sort of obstacle boss, particularly here. You don't really need to kill him or anything, but we can just avoid him and run away. In fact, you almost really never have to actually fight Pyramid Head in the game. You can most of the time just run away from him. If we keep moving in circles around him, we'll eventually find his bedroom, if you want to call it that. I half expected body pillows and manga to be in here, but instead it's just a giant fan and some dark-looking atmosphere. As we try to leave, there's actually a moment very reminiscent of the first time James encountered Pyramid Head in the apartments. He stares at us from behind a fence. He can't reach us, but it gives us a chance to observe him closely. With the wire cutters in hand, we can finally make our escape, but after cutting through the fence, only a giant dark hole awaits. Jumping down, we reach the labyrinth puzzle one last time, with only the 3rd and final door left. So, beyond this door lies an apartment once more, but this room resembles the one where we heard a woman gasping back at Blue Creek, the same apartment where James hid from Pyramid Head in the closet. It almost feels like it could have been James and Mary's apartment, but maybe that's just my imagination. And here begins our worst nightmare, a loop. When we try to leave through the red door, we're basically trapped in a wave mode, where enemies keep coming until we either kill all of them or time runs out. This cycle repeats a few times until we go face to face with the toughest enemy in the game, the Mandarins. See, the issue with the Mandarins is that because they're underneath us, we have a hard time and we have to expel a lot of bullets to actually kill them. So, best case scenario, running circles, right? It's the only thing you can really do. A path out. Shit, never mind. See, the arms for the start of the Labyrinth now try to block our escape, like a wall of ghostly hands from the past reaching out to drag us to the other side. Luckily, we break free from Pyramid Head's grasp and reach the room where Maria was held. Door number 208, same as apartment 208. And inside, we find her.
Maria.
Again, she isn't alive anymore, but this time her body is covered in lesions, possibly from some kind of disease. We know she was a bit sick earlier. James initially mourns her, feeling a profound sadness, but something shifts within him as he lets go. Once again, focused solely on finding Mary. This moment of grief for Maria, followed by his immediate switch to worrying about Mary, adds a layer of sort of narcissism and almost delusion to James's character. Maria's death, including her body appearing just as Mary's would have been during her illness, shows her slow decay until she became a mere husk, explaining what Mary must have looked like as well during that time. Returning to where the puzzle was, we instead find it replaced with the Executioner's blade, which, yes, that is the Pyramid Head weapon, and it's a giant blade that we can pick up and go with. We'll need it to actually break through the arms blocking our path, because dragging this massive weapon along the way, it will actually make the arms move. And at the end of the hallway, we have something we have to do though. We have to abandon the blade to climb the ladder. This is disappointing, since in the original game we actually could keep the blade for the rest of the experience. It's a fun detail and I wish they had preserved it here, but for whatever reason they took the blade away from us. Taking the ladder leads us to a small graveyard. Many of the names are too old to read, but a few do stand out. James finds his own name among the graves, along with those of Eddie, Angela, and, well, also Walter Sullivan, the killer. This kind of implies to me, at least a little bit, that perhaps all the names listed here are of people who've killed someone. So, logically, Eddie might be one of those too. Well, we know for a fact that Angela killed her dad, and we know Walter Sullivan was a serial killer. So, the one unifying thing among them is that all of these people are killers. Which then would also imply that because we have a grave here, it could imply the same thing for us. Jumping into the grave leads us into a hallway filled with nothing but blood. Beyond the door, we do find Eddie.
Couldn't leave well enough alone, huh? You just had to follow me all the way out here. How many times do I have to kill you?
Eddie. Whoa, Eddie, it's me.
Oh, hi, James.
Eddie, what are you doing?
What's it look like I'm doing? You fat, disgusting piece of shit, you make me sick. You gonna cry, fat ass? You gonna run to your mama? Waste of skin, why don't you just kill yourself? Well, maybe he was right. Maybe I am. Nothing but a fat, disgusting piece of shit. But you know what? It doesn't matter if you're smart, dumb, ugly, pretty. It's all the same once you're dead and a corpse can't laugh. What's that? You want to talk down to me some more? Tell me to relax? You're just like the rest of them, James.
No, I don't want...
Shut up! You think I'm stupid. You think I don't see it. But you've been laughing at me all along, ever since we first met. But you ain't laughing now, are you?
I'm not gonna lie, there's something oddly funny about how James just fucking punches Eddie, but what happens next isn't really as amusing. Eddie escapes, but he clearly shows the signs of being deranged, basically a confirmed killer. He admits to killing a dog belonging to a high school bully, a football player, and for no other reason than resentment. We even gathered hints about this during our first meeting with Eddie in the apartment filled with the football memorabilia and a corpse, but Eddie's absolute enjoyment in describing the dog's death, an innocent animal unrelated to Eddie's bullying,
bullying reveals a lack of remorse, making it hard to feel sympathy for his plight. So our boss battle with Eddie begins with him hiding behind several hanging corpses and rushing at us randomly. If you've noticed how James holds his gun throughout the game, you'll see that early on his finger is on the trigger. He's inexperienced, handling his weapons like a novice. His aim is shaky and the crosshair sways heavily early on. But here, facing Eddie, a real, live human being, James's aim is precise. His resolve has sharpened. This feels more real than anything we've faced up until now. A cool detail is that Eddie will actually fire his revolver, and when he does that, the bodies hanging from the meat hooks will be ripped apart by the gun's power. Eddie will just laugh and mock us, almost enjoying the twisted game he's in. Eddie takes several hits before finally collapsing, and as he flails on the ground, James approaches him. He reaches out, and realizing that he's just taken a human life, unlike with monsters, Eddie was real. He will look at his hands, and it mirrors the expression from the beginning of the game, as if he's questioning himself and the gravity of what he's done while looking at his hands, leaving us to wonder why he'd have that same reaction at the start of the game. As we exit, we find ourselves at the docks. Out of the hellish labyrinth, just left here is now a boat. Like the man who sailed towards the woman on the island from the story of Silent Hill, following a bright light, we set out in the search of Mary. The boat ride takes a while, but I got lost on my first time around actually. Eventually, we do reach Lakeview Hotel, and outside we can explore a bit and even find a rotten apple.
Okay, I don't know if you guys saw this, but as we are entering the Lakeview Hotel, there's a sign that says, "Welcome back." A bit strange, because how would you know we're coming back right now? It's a bit odd.
First thing we pick up in the hotel is the hotel map, with the room 312 circled and labeled "Waiting for You." This was the room James stayed in with Mary way back then. At the front desk, there's also a note from one of the employees. Mr. James Sunderland, regarding the videotape you left in your room during your last stay, I'm glad to inform you that we have recovered the item and moved it to the employee section on the first floor. The tape is stored within the hotel safe to be returned to you at your earliest convenience. A tape? It's the same tape Maria mentioned, and we do find it inside the hotel safe. So, with a special key in hand, our next puzzle is a music box located at the center of the hotel. As we walk around, we enter the restaurant. There's creepy piano music and oh dear God! Oh, it's just Laura. Whew.
Yeah, you did. I guess I deserved it, huh? The fart face that I am.
Maybe. Then again, maybe you're not so bad. Just annoying.
Uh-huh. So, you got any other things planned? I think I saw a dark room back there you could lock me up in.
No. I think you've had enough.
Alright, so we have our confirmation that Laura stayed in the same hospital as Mary. Probably not the Brookhaven one, but a different one. It seems though that she truly loved Mary deeply, and there was even another letter. James also wonders how old Laura is, as the letter says that Laura is 7, but she's currently only 8, implying that Mary wrote it only a year ago. Not 3 years ago when James claims that she died. Laura had another letter but lost it. Now that she's gone, we can look around the restaurant and even play a tune on the piano. Y'all should comment if you recognize the song that James is playing right here. Alright, now that we're let loose in the hotel, we need to find a key in the botanical room and explore various hotel rooms throughout. In one of the rooms, we find a suitcase and a letter addressed to the family of someone named Sean Mitchell. Perhaps it's a nod to Sean Bean and Radha Mitchell, specifically those who played husband and wife in the 2006 Silent Hill movie. A fun little fact, the Lakeview Hotel is based on the real-life Stanley Hotel, also known as the Overlook Hotel from The Shining. The Stanley is said to be haunted, with many reports of full-body apparitions and strange occurrences happening right here. It's also worth noting that the hotel's state is interesting. The paintings and walls look fine initially, but the longer we stay, the darker things will get. Inside one of the offices is a large bookshelf and a giant painting of a gladiator alongside some animals. We can use the painting to position a set of scattered books, which open the shelf and grant us access to a dark room. Here we find a Polaroid with the room number of our next destination, as well as a suitcase requiring a code. I did try to type "help Mary" on it, but nope, that did not work.
Moving up to the second and third floor, there's a closet room that just screams jump scare. So we're gonna back off and yeah, we're not gonna deal with that. The mix of mannequins and real figures makes this place just so much worse. There's also a nurse's office with a medical note addressed to someone with the initials MSS, potentially Mary Shepherd Sunderland, which is Mary's full name. We also find a broken music box of Cinderella. This is the same one used for the Lakeview Hotel puzzle in the first game, or the original Silent Hill. In Hotel Room 202, we find a broken mirror that we can piece back together.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the sweetest of them all? Peel away the shiny skin, see the rotting flesh within.
Definitely darker than when I was a kid, but anyways, we place the apple in the center. After piecing together the mirror, we can then head to the adjacent room and pick up our first figurine, Snow White. On the third floor, the door is blocked, but we can hear Mary's voice from the other side, adding a bit of a sense of urgency to the whole thing. We find the second figurine in the meeting room where we unlock the fireplace and grab the Cinderella. For the first time in Silent Hill 2, we get to face off against a Mandarin up close, above ground. I'm unsure why this is a mini boss fight that was added, but maybe it's to break the tension since there aren't any abstract daddies in this version of the Lakeview Hotel. You see, in the original Silent Hill 2, abstract daddies will actually reappear here as well, potentially representing the heavy emotions and trauma and, you know, I guess memories that the hotel holds for other characters like Angela and James and possibly others. Either way, fighting the Mandarin above ground is challenging. This hefty enemy slaps us around and has a screeching stun lock move, but with enough ammo, it'll eventually be killed. Leaving the Mandarin, we enter a room that seems blood-covered at first, but a nearby paint bucket makes me wonder if this might be some sort of homage to The Shining, or maybe I'm just overthinking it. With the red paint bucket, a lamp, as well as a can opener, we make a red light, which when used inside the dark room, reveals the code for the suitcase. Dark Wish. Inside, we find the employer elevator key. Now, I'm gonna be real. This next section is one of my favorites in this remake. For some reason, the employee elevator won't operate if you're carrying too much weight. Probably shouldn't have had those taco and Baja Blast combos, but either way, we have to store all our gear, leaving us defenseless as we head down to the basement. Taking the elevator down, we find ourselves surrounded by Mandarins. See, this time they're above ground and without weapons, we are forced to sneak past them. It is really fun in my opinion because up until this point, we've sort of had this ability to kind of avoid them very easily and run away, and because we have weapons, we could always slow our enemies down or just kill them. Like trying to slip out at night for a smoke with your high school crush is kind of the vibe I get while trying to do this. Either way, collecting gemstones along the way, we hit the kitchen and bread. Yes, the legendary Silent Hill Easter egg strikes again. Just like Heather in Silent Hill 3, we're here to bask in the simple joy of bread. Having collected all the gemstones, we can now unlock the safe, and who knows, maybe it holds our very own personal tape. Now, after some careful maneuvering, we reach the basement bar, where a little mermaid figurine floats eerily near the jukebox inside some water. Returning to the main entrance, we can finally arrange the statues and complete the music box puzzle, as a haunting nursery rhyme begins to play. I'm gonna be real, chills kind of ran down my spine at this point, but hey, at least we now have the key for the third floor, where our room is. See, the third floor has two very crucial doors inside it. One is the blue door, accessible only with a special key for one of the hidden endings. And then there is room 312, where Mary should be waiting for us. Entering it, we find it empty, except for a video player on the floor. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's time. We pop in the tape, and let's watch it.
Are you taping again? Come on. Promise you'll take me again, James?
All right, it's all crystal clear now. James took his wife's life, suffocating her, possibly to end her suffering. Even though I knew going in, this reveal hits hard for the first time. Everything in Silent Hill, the monsters, the twisted landscape, it's all a manifestation of James's guilt and torment, which is why he literally scrubbed out the word guilt from the note back at the hospital. Even the nurses, for example, are both sexual and horrific, representing James's shame, because in some way he was attracted to them, but at the same time they looked horrific because, well, it was in the place where he had to be with Mary where she was sick. There's so many subtle hints throughout the game that actually point to this. James studying his hands at the beginning of the game as if haunted by what he did, just the same thing he did after killing Eddie. So yeah, there are a lot of hints in the game that point to this. There's even moments such as when in the beginning we got some flowers. Well, those flowers were the ones for specifically Mary. Everything that we've seen, every little hint was perfectly executed and led us to this conclusion. With James now aware of the truth, he tells it to Laura, who understandably freaks out. And I love how much James visibly deteriorated by this point. He's physically a wreck compared to the start. His face is gaunt, his hands are grimy, even his fingernails are just caked with dirt. You can tell that the man has gone through hell to get here.
Why?
I'm sorry. Mary, you know, isn't here.
Now we're back in the other world of Lakeview Hotel. The radio crackles and Mary's voice echoes from it. If you remember, way back when we first found the radio, we could actually hear her asking, "Why did you kill me?"
Come to me. Please. Why won't you come?
But where? Where are you?
You're so close now. Please. Don't leave me out here, James.
As I search for an exit, something strange appears. It's a headset and a tape recorder. This is a callback to Silent Hill 2, where James listened to a tape of him and the doctor discussing Mary's condition. Now, I love that tape in the original game because it had the whole floating bed and whatever. Basically, also this entire thing listening to it was really important. Sadly, though, they removed it in the remake, which I found a bit disappointing.
You must be joking.
I'm very sorry.
But you're a doctor. It's your job to heal people. How can you just let her die?
Please, calm down. As her doctor, I promise I'll do what I can. But there's still no effective treatment for her condition.
How long does she have?
However, in its place, we do get a tape where a doctor, or perhaps a darker side of James himself, speaks of Mary's suffering as being meaningless. Using the elevator now takes us to a fully flooded basement.
Mama, I was looking for you. You're the only one left. Maybe then I can finally rest. Mama, you're not my mama. Even Mama said it. I deserve what happened.
No, Angela, that is not true.
Don't pity me. I'm not worth it.
Angela's scene here is powerful. She tells James that the flames are how she sees her nightmare. James's own hell is a flooded basement, whereas for her it's flames, possibly representing the horrors that she faced, having maybe burnt down her childhood home with her mother, brother, and father inside. We don't really know, but Angela's fate feels sealed as she ascends those stairs, leaving her stuck in her own torment that we cannot deal with. But we have our own path to go. A cool detail is that with the truth now being out, with James having faced this reality and knowing that what he did, the monsters no longer fight us. It's as if though they're basically losing their power. Facing his actions has stripped them of their strength.
like his acceptance has dispelled his own delusions. Inside the burnt apartment, we find yellow police tape marking the place where Angela likely killed her dad. The fire she sees may represent the way she ended her dad's life. I mean, rather, how she ended the rest of her family's life, or even her mother's, whom she's still searching for. Reaching the final save screen, it holds 9 red squares. Just like the ones we've used throughout the game, this is, again, a little bit interesting. See, this is also seen on the Japanese box art for Silent Hill 2, possibly symbolizing the 9 circles of hell. Interestingly, the nurses also wear a red square on their mouth, a hellish reminder for James, of course. And when we save, James no longer faces us. His eyes are now too ashamed to look at us, so they look away.
James!
Leave her alone. Leave us both the hell alone. I know what you are. I know why I needed you. But it's all over now.
Now, for the 3rd time, we watch Maria meet her end, which at this point, I really don't care anymore. Instead, we face off against 2 pyramid heads. The fight is actually really tough, but ammo and healing items are conveniently, again, sort of just appearing in the area, making it manageable. Even as the roof kind of begins to collapse, there is ammo falling down too. The Pyramid Heads eventually end their own lives, symbolizing the end of James's self-inflicted torment. Masahiro Ito actually said that apparently Pyramid Heads specifically did this because their helmets are tilted downwards because they're too ashamed to face up, as Pyramid Head is a representation of the punishment that James wants to give himself for taking his wife's life. But here, when they're actually poking themselves in the face, they meet their end with their heads held high, as if their purpose is finally fulfilled. And now they don't have to face downwards anymore. Now they can face the truth. With the rust and scarlet eggs in hand, the symbolism being really clear, scarlet represents Maria, the vibrant and imagined dream wife that James desired, and the rusty one symbolizes Mary, his actual, real wife that's dying from a disease, or died from his hands in the end. During a short hallway scene here, it lets us hear Mary speaking, and from this we can tell she wasn't perfect and often lashed out due to her illness, even finding faults in James's attempt to bring her flowers. This makes her feel more real, a fully complex person, and if you let the whole speech play, it'll actually impact what ending you get, so your decision here really depends on how you play the game. One last Polaroid. Shape forces the mind. Feel free to comment on how you interpret this one, because there are a few ways to look at it, I would say. Following the stairs to the top, we finally reach the last task.
Mary? I have missed you so much.
I've missed you too. We can finally be together. Forever.
No.
James. Honey. What's wrong?
I'm sorry. I know you tried,
James, please.
but she's gone. I know that now.
Stop it.
And I can't just keep pretending.
Shut up! What do you want? Do you even know anymore? I'm yours. I'm here for you. So what if I'm not her? I can give you what she never could. I can be better than her. What else do you want me to be? What else can I be?
I am so sorry, Maria. I really am. But this has to stop. It's time to let it go.
No.
What?
I won't let you do this to me. I won't let you go. I can't!
Now comes the final battle. Maria, once the dream of Mary, now appears as a nightmarish creature born from James's psyche. This was arguably the hardest fight in the game. Maria got herself that butterfly tattoo, which isn't just a decoration. She actually breaks into swarms of butterflies and overwhelms us. It's just a frustrating but also intense battle. The only one that actually required me to retry more than once, which was crazy. Even on easier difficulties, or in this case normal difficulty, I still struggled in this battle because she will fly around and make it hell for you. However, luckily, eventually we do defeat her, and as she finally lays there pleading with us, it's time to end it all.
I miss you so much. I tried. I really did, but I can't. Just can't go on without you. I can't forgive myself for what I've done. I know this isn't what you would want. But I guess it doesn't matter anymore. You're not here. Are you?
In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday. But you never did. Well, I'm alone there now. In our special place.
This is the water ending. James will drive off the cliff into Toluca Lake, ending his life. And before the credits, we hear Mary reading out the full letter. The way James faces backwards in the car has also a purpose. Since the very start, when we left the Overlook, Mary has been there in the back seat, dead. She was there all along. Using the camera mod, we can see her body, and this is something that's already there from the moment you start the game. This actually reminded me of the movie Fractured on Netflix, where the protagonist imagines his wife and daughter having been kidnapped, when in reality, they've both been killed by him, and all along they were in the back of his truck, laying dead. This is something that he didn't know because he had hit his head and injured himself, which created a false narrative as a means of coping with what he had actually done, being a chilling twist. And guess what? In Silent Hill, it's done even better. It's beautifully executed, but also just tantalizingly creepy. And of course, it wouldn't be a Silent Hill game if there wasn't multiple endings, and Silent Hill 2 actually has many of them. And the remake also added 2 entirely new possibilities, that being the bliss and the stillness ending, which added a fresh layer to the choices you already have to make. Now, one of the most unique things about Silent Hill 2 is that basically whatever ending path you want to go for, they aren't triggered by a single key item or action. See, in the original 2001 game, nearly everything you do, from interacting with the letter from Mary to choosing to fight enemies, being barehanded, or really just impacting any element of the game, would change what ending you would get. It's a complex system that really felt ahead of its time even back then, and it's a system that even today they haven't brought back in many games. There's not many games like Silent Hill 2 when it comes to the endings, but let's go through the endings you could have gotten really quickly. First, there is the joke ending, the UFO and dog ones. For the dog ending, basically it's achieved in New Game Plus, and this is an Easter egg ending showing James speaking Polish in the remake. In the original, it was actually Japanese, as he encounters Mira, the Shiba Inu mastermind behind everything, which is a cool and fun one. There's also the UFO ending, which is another New Game Plus exclusive. This one involves James being abducted by aliens, and in an incredible, touch of difference, he's actually taken away by the original James Sunderland from the 2001 game. Just an incredibly little meta joke that they did here. Then there is the 2 brand new endings. There is the Bliss one, and this is one of the remake endings. Here, James consumes some of the mysterious white goo back at the hotel. He then watches the tape at Lakeview and catches a glimpse of himself within the tape, suggesting that perhaps he was drugging himself or even overdosing to escape reality, choosing to stay in a blissful ignorance or instead of facing his actions, which is why the one James inside the videotape looks back at us.
Oh, no, it's fine. Everything's fine.
Then there is the stillness ending, probably the most tender of all of them. This one shows James sitting in his car, again, just like in water, ready to leave, or rather go over the cliff. But instead of doing that, Mary appears in the back of the seat and comforts him. It's a beautifully bittersweet moment, hinting that James finally might be facing his truth and beginning to accept it, but at the same time, still having some delusions remaining with him. The rebirth ending, though, is the darkest of all. Here, James sets out to resurrect Mary by taking her body to an island on Toluca Lake, where he prays to the old gods for her revival. It's a hauntingly fitting conclusion given Silent Hill's themes of ancient gods, occult rituals, and even cosmic horror, much like the themes explored in a game like Signalis, where revivals and endless loops are a core element of the storyline.
Silent Hill. The old gods haven't left this place. And they still grant power to those who venerate them. Power to defy even death.
But in my opinion, the Leave ending is the good ending as well as the best ending, at least to me. The Leave ending is widely considered the most hopeful one. See, here James fully accepts what he has done, and with Laura by his side, he leaves Silent Hill. This feels like James finally confronting his demons, making peace with his actions, and moving on. A rare but uplifting moment. The last ending is the Maria one. In this one, it's as if James actually accepts Maria and takes on her as a replacement for Mary, at least within his mind. But quickly, she starts coughing just like Mary did. No matter how much he tries, he cannot escape reality.
Better do something about that cough.
When it comes to all the endings, to me, this entire game feels like a loop. James is trapped in a hellish cycle, replaying his journey over and over again, and each time getting closer to the end. Each time we see remnants of James around Silent Hill, they feel like a version of him who didn't make it through this nightmare. But in the end, he's able to reach one of the good endings. He breaks free from the cycle, closing the chapter on his darkest moment once and for all. So, in conclusion, I think Silent Hill 2 Remake is a fantastic game. And above and beyond Remake, they managed to capture the same feeling of eeriness and almost awkward interactions, just like in the first game, and it just felt really good. Sure, the original was more abstract and felt more off, but I think they did a great job on bringing that back here, but also doing something that felt faithful, but still its own thing. It managed to improve on certain elements of the original, like the combat, while also making the atmosphere so much more immersive, while also making sure that the combat didn't feel like we were a soldier. Do I think this replaces the original? Actually, no, not whatsoever, but I think that that's fine. What remakes should be doing is not fully replacing the originals, but rather improving on elements of them and giving a new audience a chance to enjoy them. I know people want to complain and bitch about the remakes, but a lot of newer fans and younger gamers are far less likely to want to play a game that looks as old as Silent Hill 2 does. So having a remake helps them get into the franchise much easier and gives them a chance to enjoy it far more, perhaps even leading them to go and check out the original games at some point as well. So that's my conclusion. Alright, I'm out of here, dude. I gotta go read some Berserk, so I'll see you guys whenever I do Fear and Hunger 2. Bye!